Hey, Samantha. Happy Wednesday.
Bullshit, I can't hear you. Sound off like you got a pair.
Hey, guy, what's up, dude? Happy Wednesday. It is almost time. Alrighty, let's kick it off. What's up, everybody? I hope y'all had a great Wednesday. I am still waking up because I have been staying up and working entirely too late this whole week. Hang on one sec. Let me get something started back up here. Gotta get the screen share going. Let's see. You're not connected to the screen share, Peaches. No, you're not. No. She's like, I want to be on the screen share. Like, no, you cannot. Alright, let's see here. We actually had some really cool articles here. I was just pulling up what I've got. Let's see what we have for tonight. So, how I use agents to hunt vulnerabilities. This is one that actually just came up from Daniel Miesler. So, we're going to look at this. I think it's a pair of articles here that both actually revolved around an AI extension called Malicious Corgi that was leaking code from developers. It was doing what it was supposed to do, but it was just exfilling all that in the back end. So I think it is using, I think Malicious Corgi is making use of this Project Gate report, or Package Gate, where it was 6.0 days found in a JS package manager, and NPM's not planning to fix it, at least according to the headline. I haven't had a chance to read these. I just added them this morning. Let's see what else we got. Oh, Project Zero came out with, James Forshaw, the man, the man of Windows at Project Zero. He's got a new report out about bypassing the Windows Administrator protection. That's the stuff that's replacing UAC. And, yeah, didn't go so hot. And then let's see what else we had up here. There was one more. Oh, yeah, this Kerberos one from the other week we didn't get to, so that one's a carryover. And then this one right here, this thing called TrueSight Killer, which was about 2,500 weaponized security tool variants bypassing Windows Defender. So we got a pretty good setup for tonight. Let me see, what's in the Bad Sector Labs blog for today? Let's see. Oh, okay, so it looks like actually they're looking like there was no update to Bad Sector Labs, but that's all right. We've had plenty of news to keep us busy, and there was still kind of stuff in there. I love that he had to write an article that no, Microsoft did not rebrand Office to Microsoft 365 Copilot. Too funny. Hang on, I need some water. Throat's really dry. I was asleep just a little while ago. I've been staying up, tinkering with the AI agents. I was joking around with a buddy that the only game I've been playing recently is Claude Code. Let's see here. Let's start off things with this TrueSight article. Let's see. TrueSight Killer, 2,500 plus weaponized security tool variants bypassing Microsoft's defenses. So when I first read that, I thought it was Defender specifically. So let's see. Threat actors are weaponizing a legitimate Windows security driver to terminate EDR and antivirus protections before deploying malware. 2,500 validly signed TrueSight driver variants are actively bypassing Microsoft defenses. Ooh, I think I remember this one now. Hang on, I gotta delete some of this stuff up here real quick. Inspect. Oh, it's bringing it. It's doing it. It's annoying. If I just zoom in really far, then it brings it in. I didn't see it was called Maltbot until today, guy. As far as I knew, it was still Claudebot, Claw-D-Bot, right? I guess maybe they changed the name because they got kicked out of, because it was working with... So, okay, so let's go look at that real quick. I thought they changed the name to Malt. Oh, so they did change it because of legal issues? Yeah. That's funny, though. It's got a Claude.md. Hold on. Where's this listed at? I wonder why it's listed like that. But anyway, no, I saw a bunch of people liking it, talking about it, doing things to it. I think it looks interesting. I personally have just not messed with it. I've been having a lot of fun with the personal AI infrastructure lately. I think, yeah, this one. It seems like it's a bit more of a, let's say, I don't know, let's call it feature-rich version of PAI, but under different circumstances. And from what Daniel Miessler was talking about, he's actually going to roll a bunch of those issues from Claudebot or Malt, I don't know, Maltbot over to PAI. So I've been enjoying this right here. Actually, I had a really interesting conversation with it last night. I had it go through and design its own configuration for an operating system because I was wanting to put it onto a dedicated computer I've got right here. It's an old little Intel NUC. And it actually came up with a pretty solid plan on how to configure it and deploy it onto NixOS. I was like, all right, cool, let's try this. Freaking NUC won't install NixOS. It's the weirdest bug I've ever seen. I messed with it till probably 3 in the morning. And I've never seen any computer do this before. I've seen plenty that won't boot off the USB stick or won't do anything like that. No, get this. I'll throw in the USB stick, I'll boot up the computer, get into the boot menu, tell it boot from the USB. Everything pops up. It's like, hey, yeah, here's the NixOS installer. I hit any of the menu options in there and just freezes. But here's the kicker. It freezes, and then if I just push any other button, anything, doesn't matter, it drops back to the BIOS boot selector. I'm like, what is going on here? Yeah, here you go, guy. I'll drop a link to it for you. Now, this is a complete overlay of Claude Code. It's 100% designed to work with Claude Code. So you'd have to go run through it, get the ideas, and convert it over to using something like OpenCode if you wanted to. But I've been having a lot of fun with it. It's pretty sick. Let's see here. All right, let's get started though. So, right, now we're going to actually start the article. True Site Killer. So, it looks like this was kind of like a variation of the BYOVD attacks. Bring your own vulnerable driver. Where what they'll do is they will install a legitimate signed driver. And after they do that, where is this? Hang on. After they do that, basically, then they exploit a known issue in the driver. And then that will allow it to basically, because the drivers are running in kernel space, they come through, they bring a purposely vulnerable driver that's legit, that's signed, they install it. And then once that happens, then they just go exploit the driver. And now they've got, kernel level permissions inside the system. Let's see here. So what is the problem here? So a massive campaign is exploiting a legitimate security tool to kill your defenses. Over 2,500 validly signed variants of the TrueSight.sys driver, a component of Adlace's software Rogue Killer antivirus suite, are being weaponized by threat actors to terminate endpoint protections before deploying ransomware and remote access Trojans. So the irony is devastating. A driver designed to protect systems from malware is now the primary weapon used to kill security software. Checkpoint Research uncovered this campaign in January of 2025, documenting how attackers exploit a Windows driver signing policy loophole that allows pre-2015 signed drivers to load on modern Windows 11 systems. Oh, so this is an old driver. Very old, like 10 to 11 years old now. So the key facts are there's about 2,500 unique variants with valid digital signatures. Certificate manipulation bypasses Microsoft's vulnerable driver blacklist. This part I had heard about. I'm curious to see if they detail how that works. It's been active since about June of 2024, with new samples appearing about weekly. Multiple actors, including Silver Fox, Ransomware Group, and other APTs are using it. It's got about a 97% AV evasion rate. Only 2 of 73 engines were detecting it. Magic Sword is actively monitoring this threat and providing real-time intelligence to help defenders block these attacks. Magic Sword's the ones who actually wrote this blog. I'm not familiar with them. The name just caught me off guard. I was like, whose threat hunting group is that? So let's see here. So how the attack works. The weaponized security tool, which is TrueSight.sys, is a legitimate kernel mode driver from Blaise's software roguelike antivirus. It is a tool security professionals use worldwide, but the legacy version of 2.0.2 contains a critical vulnerability, which is arbitrary process termination. RIP. Attackers discovered they could send an IO control command to terminate any process on the system, including protected security software that normally can't be killed from user mode. Even worse, as Checkpoint documented, attackers can manipulate the driver's PE structure while maintaining its valid digital signature, creating thousands of unique variants that evade hash-based detection. I mean, yeah, that's cool, but maybe I'm overlooking something fairly obvious, but how come if the PE structure is being manipulated, that should change it changes the file hash value. However, it doesn't invalidate the digital signature. So wouldn't the digital signature remain the same? Maybe they're going to get more into it. I'm not sure. Hold on, I'm going to open the Checkpoint version of it too so we can take a look at it. Anyway, so here's the attack chain. Initial compromises through something like phishing, social engineering, fake website, watering hole attack. And then they have a stage 1 deploying and masquerading as a legitimate installer. It establishes persistence from scheduled tasks and using DLL side loading. And then stage 3 deploys an EDR killer module and whatever the final payload is, which is, in this case, when they're documenting Ghost Rat. The killer module is a sophisticated module protected by VM Protect that targets 192 security products, including Falcon, SentinelOne, Sophos, Trend Micro, Kaspersky, Symantec, McAfee, and more. The module's actions are they download the TrueSight driver, if it's not already there, install a driver service, send the IO control to terminate all targeted security processes, delete the security software from disk, and then deploy a final payload. Nice. Nice. So the time from initial compromise to a full control is usually about 30 minutes they're talking about here. And so here's the trick. So why the traditional defenses are failing is from certificate manipulation. Attackers aren't using unsigned malware or stolen certificates. They're manipulating a validly signed driver in ways that bypass the traditional defenses. So the attackers modify just 8 bytes of the driver. So there's a 4-byte checksum field, which is not validated during certificate checking. And there's a 4-byte certificate padding outside the cryptographic signed data. So that creates 2 to the 64 possible unique file hashes. Okay, just so y'all know, that's a lot. That's a lot of numbers. So while maintaining the driver's valid digital signature. All right, hold on. So let me think about this. So there's 8 bytes they've got to mess with here. So 4 bytes in a checksum field, which isn't validated. That's funny. And then there's another 4 bytes for certificate padding outside the cryptographic signed data. Maybe I'm still missing something. We'll take a look at the Checkpoint article after this. Hey, Kaiju, what's up, brother? The thing I'm missing here that I'm not understanding is they should be able to see that the certificate is valid and look at the certificate info. So why can't, I don't know, maybe that's just not something a lot of EDRs do. I'm trying to think about it. I don't get why they couldn't go look at it and be like, hey, here's where it's signed, and here is not the checksum, but go look at the actual certificate data and blacklist by that. I would think that would work. So let's see here. So that Microsoft, by the way, if you didn't know this, Microsoft has a driver blacklist, whatever you want to call it. And it was designed specifically to start combating the bring your own vulnerable driver style attacks. And apparently there's a gap if these drivers are older than 2015. Let's see. Microsoft's vulnerable driver block list uses TBS or to be signed hash values to block malicious certificates. The TrueSight certificate's TBS hash is in Microsoft's block list, but it's associated with a different vulnerable driver. What? That's wild. The block list entry doesn't specifically name TrueSight, so version 2.0.2 slips through. Microsoft didn't close the gap until December 17th of 2024, about 6 months after the campaign began. That's wild. Let's see. Kaiju asked, did you see the new Sec 1 cert from THM that they came out with? Piqued my interest. I have not. We can take a look at it after this article. Go check it out. Oh, let's see. Real world impact. So who's using this? Checkpoint attributes the primary campaign to Silver Fox, financially motivated threat actor based out of China. However, the technique kind of proliferated from there. Let's see. Silver Fox got a hold, get started it all, and then some ransomware groups, APT groups, like Quilin, Inc., Black Cat, and basically now it's available in underground forums. The final payload is called Hidden Ghost or Ghost Rat variant that provides remote control capabilities, keylogging, data exo, webcam, microphone, and dynamic C2 communications. So the combination of the EDR killer and full remote access is complete pwnage. Okay, so here they're expanding on the hash-based math. Cause this is the part I'm most interested in. So the math is you have 8 total bytes you can manipulate. So that gives you 2 to the 64 power possible variants. So attackers generate new variants on demand. Each variant has a valid digital signature. So by the time threat actors include that, by the time your threat feed includes 1 hash, attackers have moved to 100 new variants. That has to be easily signaturable though. I mean, if I was running this and I was Falcon or somebody else, I would have put detections in for this because there's more ways to skin this cat than just this. Anyway, that's why I'm so confused by it. Let's see. The Hunter strategy notes that while major EDR solutions have tamper protection, TrueSight can disable it because it's killing the process from the kernel, basically. You don't stop the kernel. The driver loads before the EDR kernel modules can block it, and kernel load termination bypasses any user mode tamper protections. The valid signature makes it appear legit, and the multiple variants ensure that once one gets blocked, the others succeed. Let's see. And this is what I don't get. So at least as far as the AV, well, actually I do get this. The AV signature, this is an old driver. It's been around for basically pre-2015, right? So it's at least 10 years old. And it is a legitimate tool and a legitimate signed driver. So it makes sense why a lot of them wouldn't be looking at this. But also one that's that old, I would just start flagging it. You know, it's like, I was like, no. We're just gonna kill this thing. So, hey Fluster, what's up, man? All right. Why generic feeds aren't enough. Then we're gonna start going to Magic Sword's little magic dust in here. That's awesome. Behavioral indicators. So here's what I'm getting. Like, if this value, is it mutating or not? If this TBS hash value is not mutating, why is that not something that could just get flagged on? I would have, because you gotta think, if there's one driver that has this much ability to slip through it, and there's probably other cracks that are happening in there. So, I don't think that's, What's your opinion on the US trying to ban cryptography? I haven't seen that. Last I heard, it was actually the UK wanting to ban cryptography or backdoor it, and the bad guys will never get the keys. Yeah, you can't really backdoor math. I'm just saying. Well, feel free to drop me a link, Snaggle. Let's see. Other behavioral indicators. Critical steps. Yep. Okay, so that's pretty much it. Let me look at the checkpoint side. Did they provide any more information on this? Oh, so this was an older one. Definitely, because this was the original one they highlighted in February of 2025. In here. Background and key findings. Okay, I'm just kind of browsing through this real quick because I want to see, did they have anything else in here about the signature verification? Hey Ford, what's up, man? To protect the kids. I know, right? It's always to protect the kids. Would somebody please think of the children? Oh, that's wild. Anyway, all right, moving on for that one. So here's the next one I was actually really interested in from last week, which doesn't have enough time to get to it, because anytime there's a Kerberos relay, you know I'm there. And this is from the guys over at Simulate. Simulate's not a bad firm. I've had some interactions with them in the past. They work on doing kind of like simulated red teaming, penetration testing. Actually, I thought about trying to use them at my last company. We were trying to see if we might be able to make a product offering out of it. But anyway, this is pretty cool research. Let's check it out. Kerberos authentication relay via CNAME abuse. And so this is from Ben Zamir. Simulate research uncovered a dangerous flaw in how Windows environments handle Kerberos service ticket requests, one that significantly expands the practical attack surface of Kerberos relaying in Active Directory, which I'm like, love me some relay attacks. Oh, there was one that we were looking at. Well, someone had mentioned something real quick before I start digging into this. Oh, that's right. You wanted to, Kaiju was asking about the Sec1 cert from THM. No, honestly, because of some of the stuff that TryHackMe has been doing, they're kind of not on my happy list right now because, was it Sec1? Or is it the Sal one? So there was the Sal one, which is the SOC simulator. I tell you, let's just go over to TryHackMe real quick. Let's go look at it. Yeah, grab me a link, Kaiju. So the first one you're mentioning there, the Cloud Act, I don't believe that has anything to do with encryption. That's compelling companies to provide data that's stored on their servers, which I think is bogus. Also, that's a Fourth Amendment violation, and they're using private companies to do an end run around that. The other one you're mentioning here, the Online Safety Act. Public communication. I'm not sure where you're going with that Online Safety Act. I remember when that was going through, and that was pretty bogus also. I'm talking about stuff like where they explicitly are trying to, I mean, the US government's tried it anyway, and Apple's actually come in and said, hey, no, we're not going to put it a back door. And last I heard about that, because I don't track that super closely, but no, so Fluster, I'm a total, you can't really ban cryptography because you're banning math, right? It's the same stuff where they're like, hey, you can't publish, you ever heard of, I'm sure you probably have heard of it, considering this is like your area of questioning. Have you heard of the illegal numbers, Snaggle? Let's see. Cybersecurity 101, sir. Hold on, over here. Let me grab that link real quick, Kaiju. Yeah, but you got to remember when Clinton was happening, I was in elementary school. Yeah, it was really fun to learn about what Monica was doing under the White House desk when I was still, I think, in like 3rd grade. But yeah, but for anybody who's wondering what I'm talking about, there are numbers that it's actually illegal to be in possession of. Hey, Gumby has popped a 13th shell. He's an initial access broker. What's up, brother? Let me see if I can, I don't know if the Wikipedia actually shows it real well. Yeah, pretty much. A number may represent some type of classified information or trade secret. Typically, it's related to some kind of like cryptographic key material. So, right, this is usually something like a prime number. A prime number is used as part of a cryptographic management system, but because of that, it's part of some kind of trade secret or some other crap like that, and so it's an illegal number. So, what they used to do, and my buddy had this shirt. I freaking loved it. I should probably go see if I can find a copy of it. But it was a T-shirt that basically said you couldn't, they said you couldn't print the number, but there was some kind of a legal loophole where you could put it on a t-shirt. Excellent choice, hoodie. Thanks, Wolf. Dude, it's still cold. It's finally above freezing here in Dallas. It's still cold in my office. So I was like, I gotta put the hoodie on. Here, we can go ultra hacker mode, right? Just do it like that. So, yeah, my thought on that, Fluster, is if they are going to arrest everybody. Now, I'm not fully up to as much as I used to be, because that used to be a lot of my jam back in the day, like real like cypherpunk type stuff. I just haven't been keeping up with it. I'm relying on the younger, more angry folks, I guess, to fight that battle for me. I'm more just working and taking care of the family now. But yeah, no, cypherpunk type stuff, totally my jam back in the day. Tweaking my Lux config, having a removable boot USB so I couldn't get Evil Maid attacked, that kind of stuff. Oh yeah. All right, sorry, we're just kind of all over the place tonight, but all right. So which one was the Sec 1 cert? Let me see. Also, yeah, so what I was saying is, the guys over at TryHackMe are also using a lot of information to try and train like personal suite of AI agents, which I think is absolutely stupid because you're training it on people that are sitting here doing these kind of challenges and learning from it. I don't think they're going to get very far with it, but also it's a kind of a violation of trust. And Tyler Ramsby actually put out a thing saying that he's kind of cut ties with them. Oh, the ads are... All right, hang on, we'll chill out with this. Let me read through this real quick. I'm just reading through this real quick. So the Sec 101 or Sec 1 cert, beginner level hands-on certification designed for learners who want to complete TryHackMe's Cybersecurity 101 path. I mean, it's probably not bad. I think we may have looked at this in the past. Did they rename it? Oh no, hang on. We'll chill out. We've got 25 seconds left on the ads. Yeah, you showed me that. I think you posted that just a second ago, Snaggle, or maybe it's a different excerpt. But yeah, that's where. But even then, I think, well, there was a little bit different. I don't remember if, I'm pretty sure Apple may have given folks access to iCloud accounts. However, I think the one thing they weren't doing was actually like decrypting the iPhones, like trying to like show them how to bypass the protections and break into it. So. Oh yeah, so Snaggle, my thought is the federal government is incredibly too large and too bloated and should be handling a lot fewer problems than it actually is. So the principle of, let's call it lowest level governance, is one that I'm really big on, which is if you've got a problem and you've got a hierarchical set of governances above it, like we do in the United States, we've got city, county, state, region, government, federal. You've got all these areas that can handle this. Stuff that's going on down here doesn't need to be handled up here. And a lot of that's kind of where they're overreaching with a lot of this stuff. Yeah, no, I don't like it. I don't like a lot of it. Especially because if you ever read 1984, you know what's going on. I need to shorten that sound.
Incoming
It's a little too long.
transmission from Mariano Gumby. Wait, I missed that. What is THM doing?
THM has cracked all encryption, Gumby, and they're just leaking it to the feds now. So they're just Fed Broker 101. I'm kidding. No. Kaiju was asking about the Sec 1 certification. I think I actually did look at this a little while, Kaiju, and it looked like it was a fairly decent intro course. So not too bad, especially since I think I don't remember how much the course is, if they mention it. Is the course free and you just pay for the exam? I'm not logged in. But it looks like a fairly comprehensive, it literally is like a 101 style security course. Oh, so it is 126? Okay. I thought this was just for the exam. So like, is the course free, but the exam costs money kind of thing? All right. Let's see here. What we did? Oh, that's right. We were doing Kerberos CNAME stuff.
Incoming transmission from Mariano Gumby. You said something about the AI at THM spying.
Yes, so it's not that there's an AI spying at TryHackMe, but let's be real, TryHackMe probably has a treasure trove of interactions for people working on cybersecurity learning and working on at least somewhat predictable environments, right? Well, no, the who was it? One of the guys who's in charge of TryHackMe has a new startup that's trying to make like a cybersecurity AI agent, like an offensive cybersecurity AI agent. So, and the way they have gone through and manipulated some of the stuff and just some of the things they've said, it looks a lot like they're using TryHackMe for data slurping to train whatever this new startup's AI agent is, whatever this AI model they're going to build. I don't remember all the particular details. Kyler Ramsby was following it a lot more closely and was following it closely enough that he used to be like really in with the THM guys, and now he has severed ties with them because he doesn't like what they're doing. So that's where I would say that's why I've always been a little bit leery of THM over the past probably like 6 months. I think that's what's going on. All right, so the bill that Snaggle was talking about requires a manufacturer let's say a manufacturer, developer, seller, or provider of technology product and service to alter the security functions of its product and service to allow a government agency to conduct a physical search or surveillance. Yeah, good luck with that. Use the product or service to decrypt encrypted information. Good luck with that one too. And the bill prohibits federal government from requiring a person to assist in devising a method of breaking the encryption or wiretap or oral communication. Dude, all the laws are so jacked up. They're just, it's messed up and monstrous, and it's an abomination.
Incoming transmission from Mariano Gumby. Do we know what data is it like PII?
No, it's not like PII data. The theory is, I don't know if there's been any strong confirmation to it, Gumby, but the theory is that they are going through and using the activities that people are doing to try and, like, inside the TryHackMe labs, to try and train some kind of offensive AI agent. And I think they're probably a little bit too late, too slow to the race, and they're just going to end up burning a lot of tokens on it. They're going to lose some shekels, and that's about it. I think that's where they're going with it. I need to go reread it because I'm objectively wrong. How am I objectively wrong when I just read it word for word of what you posted? Alter the security functions or products or service to allow government agency to conduct a physical search or surveillance or user surveillance. Yeah, I read it. I don't like it. I said good luck with it because there's some systems that just aren't available like that. For example, how are you supposed to go modify an iPhone to allow that? Apple could do it, but Apple's big enough to push back on it, and they have been. One good thing they've been doing recently, the Glass update was atrocious. Use a product or service to decrypt encrypted information. Okay. I mean, cool. But if I'm using something else that's open source, it's like, what are you going to do about it? If I have encrypted it and it's not being encrypted at the service? Oh, I read it backwards. Ah, hell. You could have just said that instead of saying I'm spreading misinformation. Don't. Hey, I read fast. I make mistakes. Just say, hey, dummy, you read it backwards. Okay, so the bill prohibits a state from requiring a manufacturer to do anything like that. Okay. Thank you for the highlights. I'm tired. I was up till 3 in the morning, and then I still worked my regular full day. Thankfully, I was able to get a nap in the afternoon. All right, anyway, I want to get onto this article now. Kerberos authentication relaying via CNAME abuse. All right, so Simulate Research uncovered a dangerous flaw in how Windows environments handle Kerberos service tickets, and one that significantly expands the practice of Kerberos relaying in Active Directory.
Incoming transmission from RNO Gumby. Oh, I have a sub to them, so if it not PII, then what it matter? We are spied on daily. If you have a smartphone, the feds are watching you.
Yeah, I call my Fed Fred. So every so often, I just like to hold my phone up and go, hey, Fred, what are you wearing? Hey, Fred, I know it really sucks that you're having to listen to me right now while I'm nice and warm in my house, and you're having to sit outside in the FBI van. Yeah. No, Snaggle, I am absolutely faulted, right? I am not flawless. I am flawed. I'm a flawed human being. So I make mistakes. You can call me out on it. It's just, there's a difference between me spreading misinformation like, no. The sky is totally green, bro. It's green. The sky is a nice periwinkle. No, versus you flipped a bit in the sentence. Oh, good, dude. All right. Anyway, this is one I'm really interested in because this is what I do at my day job. All sorts of relaying and abusing tactics and abusing identities in the networks. All right. So what did he say? So by abusing the interaction between the Kerberos TGS request and the DNS CNAME resolver, technique allows an attacker poised on path to coerce Windows clients into requesting a service ticket for the attacker chosen service principal names. Okay. So hold on. Let me pull up the not so whiteboard of knowledge here real quick so I can run y'all through where this is kind of sitting. So here's what they're talking about with this. So you got three main kind of actors that happen in here. So you have a TGT, and then you've got a TGS right here. So I don't know why I did that in lowercase. And then you've got a TGS. So the TGT basically says who is doing something. And the TGS is kind of saying who and what is doing something. Who and what? Ooh, right here. And this is what points you to something on a server. So you use the TGT, you request that, you get it, then you use that to request the TGS, and then you go send that TGS to something on a server. So there's the who, and the what might be, let's just say, I don't know, we'll say the host service, because there is a host service on every Windows computer. So the who would be like the server, and the what would be the host. So it identifies you, ties everything together in here. So what they were just saying is, abusing the interaction between the Kerberos TGS request and a DNS CNAME resolution, technique allows an attacker positioned on path to coerce Windows clients into requesting user service tickets for an attacker's chosen service principal name. So yeah, usually whenever these two are put together, this would form the service principal. So I think what he's talking about, and everything's done as a matter of like FQDNs in there. So yeah. Snaggle, I get you, man. Just don't drop too many in there. So as part of all those service principles that are happening in here. So for example, let's say this was it. So let's say this was going to, gosh, it's been so long since I had to do this. I'm trying to remember the structure of it. Let's say it's going to like server. Let's say like server A, and it's going to connect over to the host service. I think I've got this structure completely wrong. But anyway, here's the name, here's the host. I think what they're saying is that basically if you had a CNAME set up, right? So what does a CNAME do? CNAME takes a host name. I can't write anything tonight. So it takes like a host name 1, and then you CNAME it over to host name 2, right here. So once you have host name 2, I think what he's talking about is, instead of requesting this top ticket here, what you would do is, if you had some kind of way to control host name 2, or say, like in this case, let's say we'll say A here, and then this would be like B. I know my diagram is terrible, but anyway, let's say like if we could do this, instead of actually requesting this, what happens is, because of that CNAME, it now becomes something like server B, right? And it goes to the same service principal as host, or the same service available, right? I think that's what he's doing here, is that basically by setting up a CNAME, you can have it come through and swap over to this other one. So it looks like it's going to one server, but actually goes to another. I bet that's where he's going with it. So the tickets can then be relayed across protocols such as SMB and HTTP in the environments where the signing happens. Or if channel bindings are not enforced, enabling user impersonation without ever knowing the victim's password. Nice. So the result is a highly practical on-demand Kerberos relay technique that enables lateral movement, privilege escalation, and even remote code execution, yeah, depending on which level of permission you've got. Let's see, mitigation for this exposure is achieved by enforcing channel binding tokens and signing on all services. That's a big one I recommend all my clients. And basically applying it wherever you can, and by applying the latest Microsoft security updates. Are we sure about that? I've seen some of the Windows 11 updates recently. People can't reboot, or they just get blue screened. There's a reason why they're being called microslop now. By the way, they hate being called microslop, so yeah, not going to stop. Anyway, so to test and validate the resilience against attacks targeting this weakness, simulate exposure validation has been updated with a new attack scenario. All right, so let's see. How long is this damn thing? Ooh, that's a long article. Okay, just curious about that, because I saw the scroll bar over here and I was like, it's tiny. All right, so let's look at the exec summary right here. Oh, so I take it back. They had a couple of attack scenarios they're going to look at here. So scanning for relayable Windows authentication services, basically missing channel binding tokens, or missing signing or channel binding tokens. ADCS escalation 8, and this one was using MIDM 6. You know what? I think I've seen this before. This sounds familiar. Now that I think about it, because another article I remember reading something like this, they were using MIDM 6 also for escalation 8. Hey, let's look at this. I think this might have been a James Forshaw technique. Actually, it couldn't have been. According to this, the research this is based on is from October 2025, and this would have been way before that. Anyway, this was reported to Microsoft in October 2025. Microsoft confirmed the reported behavior and acknowledged that the Windows Kerberos clients will follow DNS CNAME responses when constructing a service principal name for a TGS request. The primary actionable security that Microsoft chose to implement was address the target service's resilience. So Microsoft implemented a backported CVT support for HTTP sys across supported Windows versions. This was in January of this year. They cut a CVE for it. What's that? CVE 2026-20929. And while the mitigation significantly reduces exposure for HTTP relay scenarios, the underlying behavior described in this research, the ability to coerce Kerberos clients into requesting service tickets for an attacker chosen service principal name, was via a DNS CNAME manipulation, and that remained unchanged from what they did. So most importantly, highlights a broader and often misunderstood security reality. Kerberos itself does not inherently prevent relay attacks. Protection against Kerberos relaying is enforced at the service level, not at the authentication protocol level. So each Kerberos-enabled service, like SMB or HTTP, must independently enforce protections such as signing and channel binding tokens. I mean, I don't think that's actually the case. I want to say that usually it's configured at the OS, at the operating system level, right there. Typically, those things are configured at the OS level. No excuses, Gumby.
Incoming transmission from Moreno Gumby. I need coffee. Am not awake enough.
I understand, man. Like I said, I stayed up till 3 a.m. working on this Nook right here. That was going to be a new special purpose box, and I cannot get the damn thing to boot NixOS. Let's see. Anyway, so yeah, they're talking about configuring on the individual services, but typically I don't believe you actually I've never seen them configure this on the individual services. I've always seen it configured at the OS level. So as a result, much of the responsibility for preventing Kerberos relay attacks lies in the organizations and servers themselves. Disabling NTLM or moving to Kerberos alone doesn't eliminate relay risk unless every exposed Windows authentication service in the domain explicitly enforces anti-relay protections. And that's usually what happens with it. Let's see. Key findings, conditions, background. I want us to see like where they're going with this. All right, let me see where they're actually detailing the attack here, because that's what I'm most interested in. Okay, so the actual abuse, Kerberos DNS CNAME abuse. So when a client connects to a service, it performs a DNS lookup to resolve the service name to an IP. This resolution step can be abused. So upon receiving the client DNS query, an attacker can return a response that returns a CNAME record. Wait, hold on. So it's saying upon receiving that query, an attacker can return a response. So they talk about just doing a DNS man in the middle? Is that really what's happening here? Because they're talking about the attacker could return a CNAME record that aliases the requested domain to an attacker-chosen hostname, and in the same response also supply an A record for the chosen hostname and resolve the attacker-controlled IP. For real? Is that why they've been using MIDM6? Because this is just a DNS man in the middle? I was so excited about this. Like, bro, of course you can do this if you can DNS man in the middle.
Incoming transmission from Moreno Gumby. Yay, I was up until 2:30 after my new computer chair came. Up for 28 hours and just woke up when I joined.
Bro, take care of yourself, man. Bluster, so it wasn't from you quoting sources, it was from you spamming links. Yeah. It's all good, dude. We can have a discussion here. Alright, I'm gonna skip this one because, yeah, this isn't more of a CNAME issue. This is a DNS man-in-the-middle issue. That's why they were talking about using MIDM6. Okay. Well, that was disheartening. I was looking forward to that one. But this one actually looks pretty sick. See if I can blow this up, make it a little bit more. There we go. Now we're talking about that.
Incoming transmission from Moreno Gumby. Send you a pic of it in a sec.
Yeah. Lester, you don't have to argue with me though, man. I agree with you. I know that they're doing it. I thought that you were referencing something a little bit more recent than those articles. I've been doing hood rat stuff with computers since the 2nd grade. And I've been doing it professionally for 16 years now. So I've been in the game for a minute. I understand a lot of those things that you were talking about. I don't understand them intimately, and I'm not going to go quote particular sources like, by the way, the Cloud Act says this, or this other act says that. I know the generalities of it. I also know that I typically don't tend to give a damn and roll my own solutions whenever I need stuff to do that. So, like I said, I was pretty heavy into the cypherpunk scene back in the day. Like, everything had to be encrypted. Everything had to be separated key sources, stuff like that. As I said, I used to have a laptop where I had basically like a USB stick that was on my keychain, and the USB stick was the bootloader. So that way, my laptop, which had nothing important on it, but I still couldn't get evil mated because I had the laptop, I had the bootloader with me. So I've been there for a minute, man. Yeah. Oh, no, they're always going to keep pushing it, Fluster. It's just a matter of people understanding that, hey, privacy isn't for people that have something to hide. It's a basic human right. It's an expectation of you keep your government in check and don't let them do shady stuff when they just kind of do it anyway, or they just want to get more conspiratorial, go MK Ultra on you. So, all right, let's take a look at the next article here. Because this is what I was talking about when we were running through the list of the articles for today. By the way, if you don't know who James Forshaw is, James Forshaw is a beast. It's over there on the other side of the room, but I have his book on Windows security internals. It's very good, and he's just been tearing apart the internal configurations of Windows systems for a very long time. And they're getting ready to replace UAC, user access controls, from a Windows system with this Windows Administrator Protection. This is going to be their new update for UAC. And unfortunately, just because of the way Windows is architectured, it's probably going to be a minor improvement, but UAC has something like 80 documented bypasses to it. UAC has never really been a security barrier. It's been a, oops, I'm a user, and I made an oopsie error. That's really what UAC has been. I don't even know that term. What is that term? That's a fear of freedom? I never heard that one before. Man, I mean, I'm not surprised. There's a phobia for just about everything, but that's a new one. I've never heard of that one before. Actually, I guess that would... I mean, I know of agoraphobia, right? You're afraid of open spaces. Freedom would be kind of just like the psychological component to that, right? You're afraid of freedom of movement, freedom of action. And that'd be a really rough place to be in, if you think about it. Yep. Anyway, okay. I want to read this article because this looks good. So, bypassing Windows Administrator Protection. So, a headline feature introduced in the latest Windows 11 2025 H2 feature is Administrator Protection. Goal of the feature is to replace UAC with a more robust and, importantly, securable system to allow local user access to administrator privileges only when necessary. So, think of it like they're trying to replicate sudo with Windows. That's what they're trying to do. This blog post gives a brief overview of the new feature, how it works, and how it's different from UAC, and then I'll describe the security research I undertook while I was into the preview build for Windows 11. Finally, I'll detail one of the 9 separate vulnerabilities that I found to bypass the feature to silently gain administrator privileges. Nice. Forshaw is such a beast. All the issues that I report to Microsoft have been fixed, either prior to the feature being officially released or subsequent security bulletins. When did he release this? So this was just released, and he said, as of December 1st from 2025, the feature has been disabled by Microsoft while all application compatibility issues are dealt with. Okay. The issue is unlikely to be related to anything described in the blog post analysis, but they probably won't change. Oh, so the analysis doesn't change, that's what he means. Okay, so what's the problem that administrative protection is trying to solve? UAC was introduced during Windows Vista to facilitate granting a user administrative privileges temporarily while the majority of the user's processes run in a limited context. Unfortunately, due to the way it was designed, it was quickly apparent it didn't represent a hard security boundary. Microsoft downgraded it to a security feature. So that was an important change as it made no longer a priority to fix bypasses of UAC, which allowed limited processes to silently gain administrative privileges. So the main issue with the design of UAC is that both the limited user and administrator user were the same account, just with different sets of groups and privileges. That meant they shared profile resources such as user directory and registry hive. It was also possible to open an administrator's process token and impersonate it to grant administrative privileges, as the impersonation permission checks don't originally consider if an access token was elevated or not. It's just considered the user and the integrity level. So even so, on Vista, it wasn't that easy to silently acquire administrator privileges as routes still show a prompt to the user. Unfortunately, Microsoft decided to reduce the number of elevation prompts a user would see, modifying the system configuration to introduce auto elevation features in Windows 7. Yeah, good old auto elevation. That's why if you have UAC enabled and then like you accidentally go, or you go bring up, what is it? Like Task Manager, right? That because that's a Microsoft signed binary, it's probably not going to care if you're already an administrator. But you can tune those. There's different levels of like UAC annoyance that you can have in there. Select Microsoft binaries could be opted to automatically elevate. However, it also meant that in many cases it was possible to repurpose the binaries to silently gain administrator privileges. It was possible to configure UAC to always show a prompt, but the default, which few people changed, would allow auto elevation. A good repository known for bypasses was UACme. That is a nice tool. And it currently lists 81 separate techniques for gaining administrative privileges. A proportion of those have been fixed through major updates on the OS, even though Microsoft never officially acknowledged when a UAC bypass is fixed. Yeah, they treat UAC bypass fixes like the redhead stepchild of patches. However, there still exist silent bypasses that impact the latest version of Windows 11, and they remain unfixed. So the fact that malware is regularly using known bypasses to gain admin privileges is what administrative protection aims to solve. If the weakness in UAC can be mitigated, then it can be made a security boundary, which not only requires more work to bypass, but also any vulnerabilities in the implementation could be fixed as security issues. In fact, there's already a more secure mechanism that UAC can use that doesn't suffer from many of the problems of the so-called admin approval elevation. The mechanism is used when a user is not a member of the administrators group. It's referred to an over-the-shoulder elevation. This mechanism requires a user to know the credentials of a local admin user, which must be input to the UAC prompt. It's more secure than an admin approval elevation because the profile data is no longer shared, which prevents the limited user from modifying files or registry keys, which might be used for auto elevation. It's no longer possible to get an access token for the administrator user and impersonate it, as the limited user cannot impersonate the other accounts. And auto elevation of Microsoft binaries is not supported. All elevation requests require confirmation through a prompt. Unfortunately, the mechanism is difficult to use securely in practice, as sharing the credentials to a local administrator account would be a big risk. Thus, it's primarily useful as a means for tech support, where a sysadmin types in their credentials over the user's shoulder. Administrator protection improves the over-the-shoulder elevation by using a separate shadow administrator account that is automatically configured by the UAC service. And this has all the benefits of over-the-shoulder elevation, plus the user does not need to know the credentials for the shadow administrator, as there really aren't any. They're just probably fake placeholder creds, but anyway. Instead, UAC can be configured to prompt for the limited user's credentials, including using biometrics. Well, that's nice. A separate local administrator account isn't required, only the user needs to be configured to be a member of the admin group to make the deployment easier. Let's see, what else we got here? So while Microsoft is referring to the administrative protection as a separate feature, it can be really considered a third UAC mechanism, as it uses the same infrastructure and code to perform elevation, just some tweaks. However, the feature replaces admin approval mode, so you can't use legacy mode and administrative protection at the same time. So if you want to enable it, there's currently no UI to do this, but you can modify a local security policy to do it. Okay. So the big question was, will this make UAC a security boundary so malware no longer has a free ride? So let's look at the research. Let's see. So I typically avoid researching new Windows features before they're released. It hasn't been a good use of time in the past, where I found a security issue in a new feature during the insider preview stage, only for that bug to be due to a temporary code that's been subsequently removed. Also, if security issues are fixed in the insider preview stage, they don't result in a security bulletin, making it harder to track when something is fixed. Therefore, there's little incentive to research features until they're actually released, when I can be confident that any bugs that are discovered are real security issues and are fixed in a timely manner. This case was slightly different. Microsoft reached out to me to see if I wanted to help them find issues in the implementation during the insider preview. Well, that was smart of them. There's very few people you could go to better than James Forshaw for this. No doubt part of the reason they reached out was my history of finding complex logical UAC bypasses. Also, I'd already taken a brief look at the note, and the features were still vulnerable to a few well-known public bypasses, such as the Kerberos loopback. I still need to go. There's still stuff with the Kerberos loopback that I'm still trying to grok and understand. So I agree to look at a design document and provide feedback without doing a full penetration test. However, if I did find issues, considering the goal was for administrative protection to be a security boundary, I was assured that would be fixed through a bulletin, or at least would be remediated before the final release of the feature. By the way, not sponsored by Jocko yet. Finish that guy off. So the Microsoft provided a document which was an overview and not all the design details. So for example, I did have a question around when a developer considered a security boundary. PHP died. God, I can't talk. It's the air's so dry from the heater running. PHP died. Thanks for coming online, man. Welcome in. So in keeping with the removal of auto elevation, I made the assumption that bypassing the boundary would require one or more of the following. Compromising the shadow administrator profile, such as writing arbitrary files to registry keys, hijacking an existing process as the shadow administrator, and also getting a process executing as an administrator without showing a prompt. Oh, this was his assumption. Okay. Gotta remember that.
Incoming transmission from _Royler. What up, loot hackers?
What's up, Boiler? How you doing, brother? Dude, did you get much ice and snow where you're at? Because we got blanketed. Finally, the road is looking clear. I have not hardly left my house since last Thursday. I've been stuck in the house for just about 7 days. This is why you shouldn't use Windows. I 100% agree. Honestly, Snaggle, if I did not need to use certain pieces of tech for the streaming setup, yeah, I would have been done. I never thought I was going to install Windows 11 on this computer. I was legit like, I don't play any games that need anti-cheat. I don't do anything like that. I was like, yeah, I was about to be done with it. Anyway, okay, so coming back. So I made the assumption that bypassing the boundary would require one or more of the following. Okay, so this is what he's thinking. He's going to need to be able to bypass the admin protection as a security boundary. Compromising the shadow admin's profile by either writing an arbitrary file or doing some kind of registry keys. Hijacking an existing process for that shadow administrator, or getting a process executing as the administrator without showing a prompt. So the prompt being a boundary is important. So there's a number of UAC bypasses, such as those which rely on elevated COM objects, that would still work in administrator protection. However, as an auto elevation is no longer permitted, they will always show a prompt. Therefore, these are not considered bypasses. Of course, what is shown in the prompt, such as the executable being elevated, doesn't necessarily correlate with the operation that you're about to perform as an administrator. Actually, I was kind of thinking about this. I wonder if there's a way for, let's say you had a piece of malware just kind of hanging out. It was waiting to maybe piggyback a UAC prompt. I haven't checked into this. I wonder if you can actually see when a UAC prompt is triggered, because if you could, then it's not uncommon for sometimes multiple to prompt, right? So you have one come up and then you have another one come up. So I wonder if you could just piggyback that. If at least from an on-system social engineering perspective, that might work. Oh, Gumby, okay. Whew, I thought that was Euler saying he got that. Give me some of that swag. If I can ever get you any, I will, brother. I got really lucky with this hoodie, and thankfully just in time for winter, because man, it's been cold in the office. This office, I like it. However, it is simultaneously the hottest room in the summer and the coldest room in the winter. Let's see. Oh, so also in the document Microsoft sent them, there was some lack of consideration of some associated UAC features, such as UI access processes, Let's see. But even so, some of the descriptions stuck out to me. Therefore, I couldn't help myself, and I decided to at least take a look at the current implementation in the Canary build of the Insider Preview. This research was a mix of reverse engineering of the UAC service in AppInfo DLL, as well as behavioral analysis. At the end of the research, I found 9 separate means to bypass the feature and silently gain admin privileges. Nice. Some of the bypasses were long-standing UAC issues with publicly available test cases. Others were due to implementation flaws on the feature itself. But the most interesting bug class was where there wasn't a bug at all until the rest of the OS got involved. What? Sounds like a logic issue as it was passing through the operating system. So we're going to dive into the most interesting bypass identified during that research. So if you want to skip ahead, you can go to the issue tracker. Let's see. This issue is interesting, not just because it allowed me to bypass the protection, but also because it was a potential UAC bypass that I had known about for many years, but only became practically exploitable because of the introduction of this feature. That's funny. All right, so background on logon sessions. First, a little bit of background knowledge to understand the vulnerability. So when a user authenticates to a Windows system successfully, they're assigned a unique logon session. This session is used to control the information about the user. For example, it keeps a copy of the user's credentials so they can use them for network level authentication. The logon session is added as a reference in the access token created during the logon process. So it can be easily referred to during any kernel operation using the token. If you can't quite find a unique 64-bit authentication ID for the session by querying the token, you can find the unique authentication ID by using the nt-query info token system call. In UAC, separate login sessions, or logon sessions, I should say, are assigned to the limited and linked administrator access token as shown in the following script, where you can observe that their limited token and their linked token have a distinct ID value. So this is the login unique identifier. I think that's what LUID stands for. Basically, you can think of the LUID as a bucket to hold all your authentication tokens and tickets and everything. What's your opinion on XNOR versus XOR one-time pads? I've actually have not heard of XNOR. Hold on. I mean, an XOR one-time pad, that is something you're probably never going to break, especially if you have you will never break encryption as long as you have a sufficiently long key space. The issue comes in whenever you have repeated key spaces. So let's say your key is only 10 bytes, but you're encrypting 100,000 bytes, right? Then eventually, depending on how it's implemented, you've got statistical analysis that can happen as those successive bytes get encrypted with the same one. So that's where something like CBC was supposed to come in and fix that, where after you encrypt to the first block, then that becomes the initialization vector for all the subsequent blocks, right? So it's each block feeds the n+1 block and it goes through and helps it. So CBC was supposed to help with that versus something like Codebook. XNOR gate is a digital logic gate that outputs a high signal only when both inputs are the same or both inputs are low. Oh, okay, so it's a not or. Got it. So only whenever both inputs are identical, either both low or both high. Okay. Got it. I haven't seen XNOR used a lot. I've seen XOR used quite a bit. Here, hold on. Let me bring... so everybody can see what I'm kind of looking at in here. So here's the truth table for it, right? As long as the two match, then you get this, right? And if you contrast this to an XOR gate, let me see if this has the truth table to it. Here we go. So here's the truth table for an XOR gate, right here over my shoulder. So in XOR, both 0, you get 0. Same thing over here, but in this case, it's the exact opposite. So you go from 0, 0, 0, 1, 1, 0, 0, like here. It's basically inverted once you've got this. So it's the opposite for it. So yeah, you could make either operation work. But yeah, so back to your question though. Yeah, hostile. Completely agree. So, but yeah, that was one of the things that, as long as you have a sufficiently long section, like let's say you have a one-time pad that's a section from a book, right? And Shut up, baby. I know it. If you have a one-time pad that is sufficiently long to cover the entire message, there's no way that anybody's going to copy that. And so that was the whole thing about, you know, old spy novels, right? It's they would have like some phrase in a book, and then that would be the beginning of the coded message. Is like that's where you're going with it. Okay, let me see if how wrong am I? Am I thinking about the exact horribly wrong thing? Ciphertext and plaintext, yeah. You're doing it. You're basically doing those against your key.
Sound off like you got a pair.
Shut up, Gumby. So if the key is random, never reused, and kept secret, the ciphertext provides no information about the plaintext to an attacker, even with infinite computational power, mathematically proven by Claude Shannon in 1949. Oh, you're talking about doing it as like a completely random. Gotcha. I mean, yeah, there's one-time pads that are used in like super high security ones where you're talking like military level. Most folks are not quite going to use that. Okay. Yes, technically, if it is completely random, yeah, you're not going to break it. For all practicality purposes, if you've got something that's sufficiently random, like a random-ass book printed in 1915, right, it's going to effectively have, as far as computational power is concerned, the same net effect. But yes, if it is completely perfectly random, it's 100% done. You'll never compute that. Theoretically, could you, if you picked some random book out of the entire corpus of entirety and you had a ton of computational power, could you in theory do it? Yeah, but you're talking a metric ass ton. I mean, that is a proper unit of measurement, metric ass ton. Yes. In theory, you do want complete randomness. Okay, I will give you that. I do like randomness. But also, sharing the one-time pads also gets very difficult in that situation, right? If you got to have some way that you can get that between the people. That's why it's not used quite as frequently, right? It's used in like high security situations where, for example, I had a buddy that was his job in the military was to transport those pads, and he was given the data and he was given a weapon, and he said, and his exact orders were, anybody tries to stop you, you shoot them. So yeah, they took that very seriously. And he told me another funny story one time. So he was in I forget which room it is. I don't know if it was a skiff. He was in some high security area where they had active crypto out and exposed. And in that situation, nobody leaves that room until the crypto has all been rotated, right? And he had this pain in the ass of a major, I think. Maybe it was a captain. But he demanded to go in there to take care of whatever issue he had. And then once he was in there, they realized that he couldn't leave because they had exposed active crypto. That was a funny story. He said, all of a sudden, the work product for that day of rotating that crypto got a lot slower after that. Yeah, I'm not talking. So, Snaggle, whenever I'm talking about these things, yes, I'm being a little bit more loose with the terminology. I understand if you wanted to do something with like absolute perfect randomness, and if you had yourself a little, little active isotope so you could get some like absolute pure randomness, yes, you could do that. But also, I work with technology every day, and there's a practical component to it. So there is an ideal component, right? But there's also like a very practical component. Crazy timing for WorksLine. I know, right, man? It's just all of a sudden, for some reason, rotating that crypto for them they just had to double check and triple check everything after that happened. Hey, Hydrogen, what's up, bro? I worked in military comms gear, and they would give us all sorts of weird requirements like don't reverse engineer it. But I already know how it works, bro. I apologize if my voice is sounding like crap right now. I'm underslept, and also, like, the house feels weird. Been stuck in the house for like 7 days. I need to open the windows and get out. Thankfully, finally, it's above freezing here. Dude, I feel you, man. Hydrogen. I was up till 3 in the morning working on trying to get NixOS set up on a box, and it was beat down. All right. So anyway, come back to the article. So what he was talking about with the login sessions is each login session has its own LUID value. And in practical terms, you can think of the LUID value, at least for me, when I'm doing this every day, is I'm using this LUID value as the basically identifier for that login session, with it's a bucket holding all my Kerberos tickets. That's what it's doing. So for a perfect one-time pad, double length because symmetric encryptions are halved by quantum. Yeah. Some of the new quantum resistant algorithms sound really cool, but I am absolutely not up to date on those. Let's look at here. All right, so one important place the login session is referenced by the kernel is when looking up DOS drive letters. Really? So, but from the kernel's perspective, drive letters are stored in special object directories. And when the path is looked up by the kernel, it'll first see if there's a login session specific directory to check. And that's stored in a particular path. And it's got new hexadecimal representations of the authentication ID for the login session. So if the drive letter symbolic link isn't found in that directory, the kernel falls back to checking a global directory. And you can observe this behavior by opening /?? object directory. By the way, if you're wondering what he's using here, James Forshaw has like his own PowerShell module that he has written that has all sorts of like really interesting, cool functions for working with Windows internals, particularly around security. Hang on one sec. Let me get his book. Here we go. If you are of a mind to want to dig into Windows internals, at least for on the security side of things, I highly recommend. Hey, Dr. Reiki, what's up, brother? Oh, sorry, I missed it. I just stepped away. Thank you for the. Dude, you've had six shells. Nice, man. And Hostile, thank you for coming online, man. Appreciate y'all. Dr. Reiki making it rain with shells. So this is James Forshaw's Windows Security Internals book. It is really cool. It will also walk you through here in the back, like setting up a test lab, interacting with Active Directory. But somewhere in here, well, let me see if I can find it real quick. He mentions getting started. I'm trying to remember what the name of his PowerShell module was, because he's got one that actually walks you through a lot of the security internals in here. Let's see. Choosing a PowerShell version. Yeah, it's called NT Object Manager. That's it. NT Object Manager. So that's a module I believe James Forshaw wrote. But like I said, when I say he literally wrote the book on Windows security stuff, he literally wrote the book. Not on Windows internals, Windows security internals. There's a bit of a distinction, although huge overlap. Anyway, let's go on with this. So it's well known that if you can write a symbolic link to a DOS device object directory, you can hijack the C drive of any process running with that access token in the login session. What? Well known. Hell, I didn't know that. Even though the C drive is, or the C : drive is defined in the global object directory, the login session specific directory is checked first so it can be overridden. Ooh. Ooh. I haven't not had to do these in like the actual field, but I need to learn more about this. I have been meaning to go through this book for a long time. I have. It's been on my shelf for a year and a half. If a user can write into another login session's DOS device, the DOS device object directory, they can redirect any file access to the system drive. For example, you can redirect systemdll loading to force arbitrary code to run in the context of a process running in that login session. Nice. In the case of UAC, this is an issue as separate DOS device object directories have different access controls, and therefore the limited user can hijack the C : drive of an administrator process. The access control of the administrator's DOS device object is shown here. So he gets the NT token SID, gets the directory, formats for the security descriptor, and gets a summary of it. So the owner is administrators, group, domain users, the DACL. It's funny, I will never call an ACL an ACL, But anything that has something ACL, I will like turn that into a name. Dackle, Sackle, all those ones. But ACL is always just ACL. Interesting. So a file can contain code. That code could be between two links of a long compiler bootstrap chain. How would you stop that? That is beyond my skill set. I'm going to be real with you because I did not study computer science when I was in college. I actually studied math. And I've been working in IT and practicality for a long time. And when you're working in IT, you don't typically go down to the compiler level. But I'm always interested to learn about it. I think that'd be great. I think maybe it's because I started with network ACLs and then I learned Windows iCackles. I do the same thing. I think so too, Paul, because networking was actually my intro to professional IT. I heard it called ACL a lot, and I've worked in IT for over 30 years. Let's see, ACL is just ACL, but iCackle, yeah, can do that. Dackle, Sackle, all those other ones, yeah, those are not whatever ACL. All right, so what about this? So what about creating a DOS device object directory? So a question you might have is, who creates the DOS device object directory? It turns out that the kernel creates it on demand when the directory is first accessed. So the code to do the creation is the SE get token device map, which looks roughly like this big old honkin' chonker of code. One thing you might notice, nope, is that the object directory is created during the create directory object system call. By the way, so anything that's prefaced with, notice how this one up here was prefaced with SE. I believe that's the userland version of the, if I remember correctly, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that's the userland version of that call versus ZW, which is like the kernel mode version of that kernel call. So one important security detail of using the ZW system call in the kernel is it disables security access checks unless the optional object force check or the object attributes flags are set. So bypassing access checking is necessary for this code to function properly. Hey, Gumby's gifting shells up here. Thanks, Gumby. All right, so bypassing the check is necessary for this code to function properly. So let's look at the access control for the session 0 DOS devices. So he gets the security descriptor for the session 0 devices, looks at the summary of it, and we see that the owner is our administrators, group is part of systems, and then system has full access, administrator and create owner have generic all, which generic all is pretty much damn near full access. The directory cannot be written to by a non-administrator user, but this code is called in the security context of the user. It needs to disable the access checks to create that directory, as it can't be sure the user is an administrator. Importantly, the access control of the directory has an inheritable rule for the special create owner group granting full access. This is automatically replaced by the assigned owner of the access token during object creation. By the way, if you're wondering what he means by like object creation, you can largely think of it like everything in Linux systems is a file, right? Or it's some kind of pseudo file on disk. Whereas in Windows, everything is an object. Everything. The mouse cursor moving right here is an object. This one letter is an object inside of an object inside of an object inside of an object. And it's just freaking objects all the way down. It's turtles all the way down. That's what it is. What are we researching? Oh, here. This was the new information from James Forshaw on the preview of Windows, what is it? Administrator Protection, which is supposed to be the UAC replacement. Hang on one sec. Pardon me, I didn't want to cough into the microphone. Let's see. All right, so we talked about what happens with the special create owner permission up here. All right, so therefore, even though the access checking has been disabled, the final directory that's created can be accessed by the caller. By the way, Dr. Reiki, I know you. All the stuff he's reporting in this has already been fixed. He's actually doesn't usually test like a preview or a canary build or anything like this. But in this particular case, Forshaw made an exception because Microsoft reached out to him. So it's interesting to learn about. However, they've already fixed some of this stuff. So this explains how the UAC administrator DOS device object directory blocks access to the limited user. The administrator token is created with the local administrators group set as the owner. So that's what create owner is replaced with. However, the limited user can only set their own SID as the owner, and that just grants the access to the user. So how is this useful? So I noticed a long time ago, this behavior is a potential UAC bypass. In fact, it's a potential EOP. I live in acronym hell. I don't know what he means by EOP. Hey, Gumby gifting shells again. Thanks, brother. To Senor Monkey. Escalation of privilege? I have never heard anybody write privilege escalation like this. It's always been like a priv-esc or a privilege escalation, never a escalation of privileges. I love you, Mr. Forshaw, but I don't like it. No, sir, I don't like it. And Gumby gifted another sub, bro. I need to make like a badge or something where if you start gifting subscriptions to the channel, you get like an initial access broker badge or something. Gumby's making it rain shells over here. All right, so anyway, so in fact, this is a potential, not just UAC bypass, but a privilege escalation. But UAC bypasses was the most likely outcome. Specifically, it's possible to get a handle to the access token for the administrator by calling the query information token and token linked token in classes. For security reasons, this token is limited to a security identification impersonation level, so it can't be used to grant access to any resources. However, if you impersonate the token with the open special directory here, and call this the questionable slash directory slash question mark, then the kernel call will do an SE get token device map using the identification token. It's not currently created. It'll use the ZW create directory object to create the DOS device on the object directory. Almost sounds tiny bit race conditioning. As access checking is disabled, the creation will still succeed. However, once it's created, the kernel will do an access check for the directory itself and will fail due to the identification token being impersonated. So this might not seem like getting us very much. While the directory is created, it'll use the owner from the identification token, which would be the local administrators group. But we can change the token owner's SID to the user SID before impersonation. Really? So what he's saying is, we have our token, we swap it in for our target user SID before impersonation. That's a permitted operation? That sounds so wild. Because then, if you're swapping in the user SID, then it should use that whenever it's mapping this create owner, which would then inherit the generic all permission. Okay, so now that coming back to where we were, now the final DOS device object directory will be owned by the user and can be written to. As there's a single login session used for the administrator side of UAC, then any elevated process can now have its C directory hijacked. It's wild. Why this is allowed, setting the token owner SID to the user SID before impersonation. I don't get that. Then again, there's plenty I don't get. You can fill the Grand Canyon with what I don't get. So there's just one problem with this as a UAC bypass. I could never find a scenario where the limited user got code running before any administrative process was created. Once the process was created and running, I see where it's going with this. Once the process was created and running, there's almost certainly that some code would open a file and therefore create the initial, slash question mark directory. By the time the limited user has control of the DOS device, object directory has already been created and assigned an expected ACL, or access control. Still, as UAC is not a security boundary, there was no point in reporting it, so I filed this behavior away for another day in case it ever became relevant. Spoiler alert, it becomes relevant. Because what they were just talking about earlier, whenever you're working with when administrator protection mode, right? What do you have? You have a shadow administrator, which is, if I remember correctly, going to get its own login session. So it's going to get its own LUID. So when that one becomes initialized, what's going to happen? It's going to get its own, slash double question mark. I'm going to start calling it the double question. It's going to get its own DOS directory drive mapping in there to the C drive. But because of the token impersonation, you can set the user SID. So you have the user, and then you got their shadow admin. So the user comes in and says, okay, cool. I'm going to set my impersonation token to use my SID. And then whenever I trigger this authentication, then this guy's probably going to read from disk. It's going to create that DOS drive, but then it's going to read that SID from the impersonation level and then grant this user generic all. I think that's where he's going with this if I'm tracking it correctly. Like I said, I didn't get to read very much of this book. It's on my to-do list. I only have so much time. I apologize. I wish I didn't need sleep. All right, so bypassing administrator protections. Fast forward to today, and along comes administrator protection. For the reasons of compatibility, Microsoft made calling the query information token with the linked token, linked token information class still returns an identification handle to the administrator's token. But in this case, it's a shadow administrator's token instead of an administrator version of the user's token. But there's a crucial difference is while UAC, this token is the same every time, in administrator protection, the kernel calls into the LSA and authenticates a new instance of the shadow administrator. This results in every token returned from token linked token having a unique login session and thus does not currently have a DOS device directory object created. Called it. I could see where he was going with this as soon as he mentioned it. What was what? I was like, okay, I think I know where he's going. So while in theory we can now force the creation of a DOS device object directory, unfortunately that doesn't help us much. Damn. Got all excited. So as the UAC service also uses the token linked token to get a token to create the new process, with it means every administrative process currently running or will run in the future doesn't share login sessions. Thus, doesn't share the same DOS object directory, and we can't hijack their C drive or their C colon drives using the token we queried in our own process. So to exploit this, we need to use the token for an actual running process. Oh, is that so? This is possible because when creating an elevated process, it can be started suspended. So he's going to start the elevated process suspended, so it doesn't perform any operations. The kernel never initializes its DOS directory, the DOS directory object. So with this suspended process, we can open a process token for reading, duplicate it as an identification token, and then create a DOS device object while impersonating it. The process can then be resumed with its hijacked C colon. Nice. How? Magical hallucination. I have a theory that a lot of the Windows operating system was written while somebody was on mushrooms, Gumby, because some of the stuff that happens in here is so wild. So let's think about what happens whenever you spawn a process and it's suspended, right? The process spawns, but it doesn't run anything. So it's suspended. So it hasn't touched anything, right? The process spawns, it gets its own token, right? Hold on, let me back up because I'm still not 100% on this. I get the main gist of it, but I don't want to misspeak on it. Let's see, where did he say this? Okay, let me read it right here. So to exploit this, we need to use the token for an actual running process. This is possible because when creating an elevated process, it can be started suspended. So what happens? When the suspended process, we can then open open the process token for reading, duplicate it as an identification token, and then create the DOS object directory while impersonating it. Windows is like 33 years of duct tape and bubblegum. MacGyver did the consulting work on it. Oh yeah, dude, it's literally probably just held together with, you know, like you said, duct tape and bubblegum. I was trying to think, what else did MacGyver use? Funny story about MacGyver. I remember one time I was flying to Houston, and it's not a very long flight from Dallas to Houston. I was very young. I don't know, maybe like kindergarten or something. And yeah, you're right, Wolf. It is compatibility reasons. But anyway, so yeah, one time, speaking of MacGyver, when I was like 5 years old, I remember I was flying from Dallas to Houston with my mother. And normally it's not even that long of a drive. But anyway, we decided to, my mom decided we were going to fly. I was about 5 years old, still not a real strong concept of time. And she's trying to explain to me how long the flight will be. And she's telling me it's going to be about an hour. I'm like, well, how long is an hour? She's like, it's about as long as your favorite TV show, MacGyver. And the whole time, I wasn't stuck on the fact that the flight was going to be an hour, like my favorite TV show being MacGyver. I was stuck on the fact that if the time it takes to watch MacGyver is equal to the time it takes to fly to Houston, I'm going to miss MacGyver. I think my mom probably spent the entire flight telling me, no, sweetie, you're not going to miss MacGyver. And my only hope is that 5-year-old Blaise maybe brought a little bit of joy of trying to understand and being consoled by his mother and not throwing a fit. It was just a valid concern, right? Exactly, Wolf. Hopefully the folks around me got a little bit of laughter whenever you see a child like struggling with a concept and trying to understand it. Freaking love MacGyver. It's one of those shows I refuse to go back and rewatch because I know adult, more science-oriented Blaise is not going to enjoy it as much. Starting a suspended process is an essential part for a lot of process injections. Yeah, it is. And it's a valid way to do it. So anyway, so with this suspended process, we can open the process token for reading, duplicate it as an identification token, then create the DOS device object directory while impersonating it. And the process will then resume with the hijacked $C drive. So there's two problems with this as a bypass. First, creating an elevated process suspended will require clicking through an elevation prompt. For UAC with auto elevation, this wasn't a problem, but for administrative protection, it will always prompt. And showing a prompt isn't considered crossing a security boundary. So there are ways around this. For example, the UAC service exposes a RAI process run once API call, which will run an elevated binary silently. Ooh. The only problem is the process isn't suspended, so you'd have to win a race condition to open the process and perform the bypass before any code is running in that process. This is something which would be doable by playing with thread priorities to prevent the new process's main thread from being scheduled. The second issue seems to be more of a deal breaker. When setting the owner for an access token, it will only allow you to set the SID that's either the user SID for the token or a member group that has the SE group owner flag. The only problem with the owner flag is the local administrators group, and of course the shadow administrator SID differs from the limited users. Therefore, setting either of these SIDs as the owner doesn't help us when it comes to accessing the directory after it's created. So it turns out this isn't a problem, as I was not telling the whole truth about the owner assignment process. Damn it, Forshaw! You're withholding information. When building the access control for a new object, the kernel doesn't trust the impersonation token if it's at identification level. So this is for a good security reason. An identification token is not supposed to be usable to make access control decisions, therefore it makes no sense to assign its owner when creating the object. Instead, the kernel uses the primary token of the process to make that decision. So as the assigned owner is a limited user SID. In fact, setting the owner SID for the UAC bypass was never necessary. It was never used. You can verify this behavior by creating an object without a name. so that it can't be created while impersonating an identification token and checking the assigned owner SID. There are so many different types of tokens that are using. You have primary tokens, you have impersonation tokens. I think there's even identification tokens in here, and so it's a lot to keep track of. And like Hydrogen was saying, it's 33 years of bubblegum, duct tape, and baling wire putting it all together. Oh, interesting. So this is cool. He's getting an anonymous NT token, which I didn't know those existed. So this is impersonate anonymous token and create a directory.
Incoming transmission from Marano Gumby. I still don't understand how a process can start suspended. It either running or it not.
All right, so think about it like this. Let's close that up. All right, so whenever a process gets run, right? So you've got some executable here that you're gonna run, right? What happens is it goes from being on disk here, right? Goes from being on disk, gets loaded up into memory, right? So now you got a copy of it here. Well, what's it going to have down here? One of the main things it's going to have is it's going to have like an entry point, right? So you have an entry point. In Windows, you can tell it basically, hey, when you start, just don't schedule this sucker, right? Schrodinger's process, right? The process is there, but it's not running. It's in a suspended state. I think... if Dr. Reiki is still here, I think he'll know, and he can probably correct me. When it does this, I believe it's setting a breakpoint on here that basically says, hey, when you hit the entry point, just stop right there and don't go any further until you send it a resume process. I think that's how the kernel is doing it. But this is a legit process where you can start these, or a legit Windows, let's say, call, where you can tell it to, hey, I want you to start this suspended. So it's loaded into memory. It's ready to go, but it's not been executed yet. Think of it like you've got the best analogy I can think of is you've got a slingshot, you've got a rock loaded into it, you pull it back, and so it's loaded, it's ready to go, but it's suspended. It's just, you're just holding it there and it hasn't fired it yet. Attaching a debugger and setting a breakpoint would do something similar. Yeah, Ford, that's exactly what I was thinking of. I just don't know if that's exactly how the NT kernel is doing it.
Incoming transmission from Marano Gumby. So it running just in memory Goja.
Yeah, no, it's not running yet. It is memory. It's there. It's loaded. It's ready to go. It is ripping at the races, right? Like I said, it's like a slingshot, where you have got the rock in there and you're reared back and it is just ready. All you got to do is just release that breakpoint and let it fire. And then it will start running. So it's in memory. It is completely set up. It is ready to go, but the kernel is not letting it operate. The kernel is telling it, no, you stay right there. No touchy. All right, so what do we do here? So he gets an anonymous token. He invokes that with, tells it make a new directory. Then on D, he tells it set the security, get the security descriptor for the owner SID name, and that's going to be anonymous login. And then impersonate the identification level. So he gets an NT token. Impersonation level is for whatever T is. That's wild. Oh, I need to understand how these tokens nest and interact better. Let's see. One final question you might have is how come creating a process with the shadow admin's token doesn't end up accessing some DOS drive file resources that the user causes the user causing the DOS drive to be created?
Incoming transmission from Marano Gumby. Yay, that's above my pay grade, I guess.
It is above my pay grade too sometimes. A lot of times I take these guys' big brain stuff and wait for somebody with a slightly bigger brain than me, go through and make it work, and then I just tinker with it from there. All right, so one final question you might have is how is how creating a process with the shadow admins token doesn't end up accessing some DOS drive file resources so that the user, thus causing the DOS drive object directly to be created. So the implementation of the create user as a create process as user API runs all its code in the security context of the caller, regardless of which access token is being assigned. So by default, it won't ever open a file under the new login session. Did I ever have therapy or read any books on the topic of therapy? Not really. It just hasn't been an issue. I considered it with all the hardships my family's had over the last year, but ultimately decided against it. Just because I have my own way of dealing with things, and a lot of times I think therapy is most beneficial for people that either don't know how to deal with like very terrible life events or things that are happening to them or stuff they don't understand, or it's usually like either they don't know how to deal with the issues or they don't have a process for dealing with the issues. I have both. Now, granted, over the last year, everything's been so devastating. I was considering it. I was like, is this beyond my skill set? Tatori Cake, thank you for coming online. It's more accurate to say the process is created but not started, since it was created suspended. Yeah, Ford. Good call. Let's see. All right, so what we're talking about here is, regardless of what access token is being assigned so by default, it wouldn't ever open a file under the new login session, which would be this, in this case, like the shadow administrator's login session. However, if you know about how to securely create a process in a system service, you might expect that you're supposed to impersonate the new token over the caller for the create processes user to ensure that you don't allow a user to create a process from an executable file they can't access. So the UAC service is doing this correctly. So surely it must have access to a drive to create a process, and the DOS drive object directory should have already been created. So why isn't it? So in a small irony, what's happening is the UAC service is tripping over a recently introduced security mitigation to prevent the hijack of the C drive letter when impersonating a low privilege user in the system service. This mitigation kicks in if the caller of a system call is the system user and is trying to access the C drive. This was added by Microsoft in response to multiple vulnerabilities in manifest file parsing. If you want an overview, there's a video to it of him talking, and Matty Stone did an offensive con 23. Sorry, let me go back to this. If you want an overview, there's a video linked in the blog post of the talk me and Matty Stone did at Offensive Con 23 describing the attack service. Hold on, is that the same Maddie I'm thinking about? Cyber Maddie, is that her name? Oh, different Maddie. But yeah, I remember her. I'm not following her? There, we'll fix that. I thought for sure I recognize her. Different Maddie I was thinking about, but I remember her. So it just so happens that the UAC service is running as system. Oh God. So it just so happens that the UAC service is running as system as long as the elevated executable is on the C drive, which is very likely. And the mitigation ignores the impersonation token's DOS device object directory entirely. Thus, SE token device map never gets calls. And so the first time a file is accessed under the login session is once the process is up and running. So if you start it suspended, it never gets accessed. So as long as we can perform the exploit before the new process touches a file, we can create a DOS device object directory and redirect the process's C drive. Nice. So to conclude, the steps to exploit this bypass were as follows. So you spawn a shadow admin process through the RAI process run once call, which will run the run once exe from the C drive. Open the new process before it has accessed a file resource and query the primary token. Duplicate the token to an identification token. Like I said, it's tokens out the ears here. Force the DOS device object directory to be created while impersonating the shadow admin token. This can be done by opening the special whack question through a call to the NT open directory object. You create a C drive symlink to the new DOS drive directly to hijack the system drive. and let the process resume and wait for the redirected DLL to be loaded. Oh god, that's funny. Oh, Windows. These execution paths, there be dragons. See, there comes Dr. Reiki with the hot knowledge. Let's see. All right, so final thoughts. The bypass was interesting because it's hard to point to the specific bug that's causing it. The vulnerability is a result of 5 separate OS behaviors. All right, so we've talked about, I think it's called Pilot Brief over on YouTube. Is that the right guy? Pilot Briefing YouTube. I think that's his name. Nope, that's not it. But there's another fellow on there. He talks about airline disasters and how they happen. And he has two favorite sayings of mine that I like. One is, checklists are written in blood. If it's on the checklist, it's because somebody didn't do it in the past and it killed somebody. And the second thing I like is, he talks about that here's where all the holes in the Swiss cheese lined up, right? You have all these layers of security and checks and double checks that should happen, but sometimes things line up and then you can just see right through there, right? And this is one of those perfect cases. This is where all the holes in the Swiss cheese lined up. None of those layers is perfect, so we add the layers to try and cover all this stuff. NixOS is the only operating system where you can spend 6 hours writing a perfectly logical, mathematically pure configuration file just to discover that your computer has decided to identify as A. Dude, I like the idea of NixOS. And here's the cool part. So, since I've been messing with Daniel Miessler's PAI system, the whole reason I started investigating NixOS, because it actually wasn't on my radar, was I told PAI, I'm going to put you on a dedicated computer. You're going to have your own set of resources. I can't change the hardware, but I can configure the operating system with any operating system and any way you see fit. So I told it to look at your own system specifications and design the exact whatever system configuration that you want to be able to operate most efficiently. And Pi picked NixOS. Initially, actually, there was some confusion. Pi thought I told it to use Arch. And then finally I asked it, I was like, why did you choose Arch? It's like, I didn't, you did. I was like, no, I didn't. I told you to pick. He's like, oh, okay, well then I want NixOS. I'm like, all right, fine. And then I tried two or three different USB sticks, multiple different downloads of the Nix installer, and there's just something weird about this freaking Intel NUC. So I don't know why it's throwing such a fit. So Nix might get nixed. It looks like a really, really cool operating system, though. Hey, Bobby, what's up? Hey, Chris. Oh, I missed Sunday stream, so how did the MCP server development go? So far, it's going well, man. We're testing out a new method for that. Hang on, I'll explain to you in just a second. Let's wrap up this article. So, final thoughts. The bypass was interesting because it's hard to point to a specific bug that caused it. The vulnerability is a result of five different operating system behaviors. This is where all the holes in the Swiss cheese lined up. So the administrator protection feature changed the token link token query generates a new login session for the shadow admin token. The per token DOS device directory is lazily initialized for each new login session, meaning when the linked token is first created, the directory doesn't exist. The kernel creates the DOS device directly when it's accessed by using ZW functions, which disables access checking. This allows a limited user to impersonate the shadow admin token at the identification level, creating the directory opening that whack question one. Hang on one sec, guys. Sock came over because she's like, hey guys, I heard your alarm. Take your bedtime pills. I'm like, I will. I'm trying to finish off this article. All right. So after we have the whack question here. So if a thread impersonates a token at the identification level, any security scripter, if signed, takes the owner's SID as the primary token, not the impersonation token. That results in the limited user being granted full access to the shadow admin token's DOS device object directory. the DOS device object directory isn't already created once the low-proof user gets access to the process token because of the security mitigation which disables the impersonation DOS device object directory when opening files from the C drive in the system process. So we had 5 sheets of Swiss cheese, and here's where they all lined up. Too funny. All right, hang on. The reason why I was up till 3 a.m. last night wasn't just because I was messing with NixOS. It's because I forgot to take my bedtime pills, which actually help combat all the massive amounts of screen time I get while I'm working. So I was wired. Let's see. What else do we have in here? So in closing, he says, I don't necessarily blame Microsoft for not finding the issue during testing. It's a complex vulnerability with many moving pieces. It's likely I only found it because I knew about the weird behavior when creating the DOS device object directory. So the fix Microsoft implemented was to prevent creating the DOS device object directory when impersonating a shadow administrator token at identification level. So this fix was added into the final release build as part of an optional update, and there's a KB number here. It doesn't have a security bulletin associated with it. So I'd like to thank the administrator protection team at MSRC for the quick response in fixing the issue and demonstrate this feature will be taken seriously as a security boundary. Good.
Incoming transmission from Mariano Gumby. The Mac has entered the arena.
The Mac. Gumby, I'm not pooping. I'm sitting right here. Like, I muted myself, but I didn't even leave the camera view. This butt has been planted in this chair for 2 hours now. Let's see. Forshaw goes on. He says, I'd also like to thank them for providing additional information such as design documents which aided in the research. As for my views on administrator protection as a feature, I feel Microsoft has not been as bold as they could have been, making small tweaks to UAC resulting in carrying along the almost 20 years of unfixed bypasses, which manifest as security vulnerabilities in the feature. Oh my god, it has been 20 years. Has it? Hold on. When was Windows Vista released? Oh, I'm about to feel real old. January 30th, 2027. It's 19 years old. Vista is old enough to vote. So what Forshaw, he kind of goes on here to say, what I would like to have seen was something more configurable and controllable, perhaps a proper version of sudo or Linux capabilities where a user can be granted specific additional access for certain tasks. I guess app compatibility is ultimately the problem here. Windows isn't designed for such a radical change. I'd have also liked to have seen this as a separate configurable mode rather than replacing admin approval completely. This is why this way a sysadmin could choose when people are opted in to the new model rather than requiring everyone to use it. So I do think the improved security over admin approval UAC, assuming it becoming enabled by default. Hold on, what did he say? I do think it improves security over admin approval UAC, assuming it becomes enabled by default. Okay, gotcha. It presents a more significant security boundary that should be defendable unless more serious design issues are discovered. So I expect that malware will still be able to get administrative privileges even if it's just by forcing a user to accept the elevation prompt. But any silent bypass they might use should get fixed, which would be a significant improvement on the current situation. Regardless of all that, the safest way to use Microsoft is to never run as an administrator with any version of UAC, and ideally avoid getting malware on your machine in the first place. That's my goal. Just avoid the malware completely. I don't do the wares anymore. Do your knees hurt now that you realize that Vista was released in 2007, Wolf? Ugh. Damn, that makes me feel old. All right. All right, so I had one more really interesting one I was taking a look at here. Actually, there's two articles that are kind of rolled into one. So this is from the guys over at Koi Research. I guess I'm gonna have to do it like this. I love this image here, though. So this was one they called Malicious Corgi. The cute-looking AI extension leaking code from 1.5 million developers. Ruh-roh. So there's a twin article to this. So malicious corgi article was released January 22nd. PackageGate was released January 26th. Okay, so we're going to read these in temporal order here. So for malicious corgi, AI coding assistants are everywhere. They suggest code, explain errors, write functions, review pull requests. Every developer marketplace is flooded with them. Chat GPT wrappers, Copilot alternatives, code completion tools promising to 10x your productivity. We install them without a second thought. Bad. Bad. They're in the official marketplace. They have reviews. They have thousands of reviews. They work. So we grant them access to our workspaces, our files, our keystrokes, and assume they're only using the access to help us code. Not all of them are. Dun, dun, dun. Our risk engine has identified 2 VS Code extensions, a campaign we're calling Malicious Corgi, which has a combined 1.5 million combined installs, and both are live on the marketplace right now, that work exactly as promised. They answer your coding questions, they explain your errors, they also capture every file you open, every edit you make, and send it all to servers in China, with no consent or disclosure. RIP. And people want to give me crap about like being sus whenever I'm installing extensions or code or anything from GitHub that's from China. I was like, there's a little bit of taxonomy going on here. I don't know if that's the correct term. A malicious extension? I know, right? I'm clutching my pearls. Or in Hackerland, I'm clutching my hoodie strings. So there's ChatGPT with some Chinese letters, and there's ChatMoss or CodeMoss. One of them is a lot bigger than the other. The ChatGPT one, that's Chinese, with the publisher Wen Sunset, has 1.35 million installs. Both are marketed as AI coding assistants. Both are functional. Both contain identical malicious code. The same spyware infrastructure running under different publisher names. So these extensions actually work. The perfect cover. That's what makes them dangerous. Select code, ask a question, get helpful AI-powered responses. The extension also provides inline autocompletion like GitHub Copilot does. As you type, it reads about 20 lines of context around your cursor, sends it to an AI server for suggestions. This is normal and expected. AI coding assistants need to read some of your code to help you write more. But these extensions go far beyond what's needed for autocomplete. When the autocomplete sends about roughly 20 lines around your cursor when you're actively typing, 3 hidden channels are running in parallel, collecting far more data, far more often, without any interactions. So, channel 1. So there's 3 different channels they mentioned here. Yeah, 3 hidden channels are running. So channel 1, real-time file monitoring. The moment you open any file, not interact with it, just open it, the extension reads its entire contents, encodes it as base64, and sends it to a web view containing a hidden tracking iframe. Not 20 lines, the entire file. Boop. At the same imagine if you just opened like your env file, right? You opened your env file that's got all of your, what is it? Like all your credentials, your API keys or whatever. Gone. Straight to China. Gone. Straight to China. Believe it or not, straight to China. Is this a North Face hoodie? I think so. It is. It is a North Face hoodie. All right, so the same mechanism triggers on a did change text document for every single edit. So not just what you're actively working on, every file you glance at, every character you type, captured and transmitted. Every change you make, I'll be watching you.
Incoming transmission from Mariano Gumby. Did you see the Claudebot malware video that John Hammond and Low Level did?
I did not see it. I understand Claudebot's got quite a few security issues though, because I did catch a portion of a live stream that John Hammond was doing, taking it apart. And it looked like it, just from what little bit I saw, it looked like it was kind of rough. Looked like it was beat up pretty bad. Let's see, channel 2, mass file harvesting. So, and it gets worse. The real-time monitoring captures files as you work, but the server doesn't have to wait for you to open anything. The server can remotely trigger mass file collection at any time without user interaction. The extension parses a jump URL field from server responses as JSON and executes it directly. So here's what's happening, right? So we got a function, L, takes an argument D. We define a new constant f, and that's a JSON parse ID of whatever D's jump URL was. Parse the server payload as JSON. Send directly to the extension backend with no validation. RIP. So when the server sends, type get files list, the extension triggers a full workspace harvest. RIP. So the attack chain is pretty simple. Server includes jump URL in any API response. The web view parses it as JSON and forwards the extension. Extension executes the get file list command. Up to 50 files are harvested and transmitted. User sees nothing. You see nothing. New Mythic C2 agent? I know, right? That actually would be pretty interesting. Although it'd be a pain to get into the Microsoft store, but imagine that, like, I gotta go tell my client, like, yeah, on the initial access box, can you go install an extension from the Microsoft store into VS Code? Oh, that's funny. I'll see what I can do, Chris. No promises though. Let's see. Channel 3, the profiling engine. And no promises because I had to do a lot to get this. Let's see. So channel 1 and 2 harvest your code. Channel 3 harvests you. I have not agreed to be harvested. Soylent Green is people. So the extension's web view contains a hidden iframe, 0 pixels, completely invisible, that loads 4 commercial analytics SDKs. Oh, so this is a profiling engine running inside your code editor. So we fetch the content served by the URL. The page title says it all. Chatmos something. Can I translate that? Let me see what it says. I don't want to translate to English. Let's see if it'll do that. Hate you. Chatmos data tracking. That's on the nose. I've got to learn to read a little bit further because it literally says it right there. It loads 4 separate analytics platforms from Zhuang.io, Growing.io, Tracking Data, and Baidu Analytics, each designed to track user behavior, build identity profiles, fingerprint devices, and monitor every interaction. So combined, these SDKs build a detailed profile of who you are, where you are, what company you're working for, and what you're working on, what projects matter to you most.
Have you tried turning it off and on again?
Dude, I'm thinking about just turning it off and never turning it back on again. Hey, Jay Beers, what's up, dude? Dude, I don't know what Hammond's been up to, but he's been streaming like every day during the week. I'm like a little jealous. Dude, I need to chill more. I'm gonna have some forced chill time this weekend because it's the first race of the season. So, by the way, guys, no stream on Saturday because we'll be at the race on Saturday. We will have a stream on Sunday though, assuming I don't do something stupid to get hurt at the race. Oh yeah, Clubhot got renamed to Maltbot, aka Multi, aka Mr. Lobster. Anthropic said it was a trademark violation, which was really dumb because it was just free advertising for them. I know. Well, I think a lot of people were also pissed off because I haven't messed with Claudebot. That's what I'm still calling it. I haven't got up with the new vernacular calling it Malti or. It'd have been really funny if they started calling it Malt Ego, like Maltego. Ha! That'd have been hilarious. Anyway. I didn't mess with it, but I think it was working for a little bit with your Anthropic, like if you had an Anthropic subscription, doing the single sign-on API key, I think it was working with that, or the OAuth key, I should say. And I think they broke it, and then everybody's like, no, so I can't have nice things. NASCAR? No, not NASCAR. Cross-country ATV racing. I'm not actually racing, but it doesn't stop me from doing something stupid. Chris, there's lots of folks that just stream like them learning things. Like they're going through, they're working through it, explaining kind of what they're looking at, and just chatting while they're doing it. There's a ton of folks that do that, man. Anyway, so what I was saying here is, back on the article, So what they've got is they've slurped up all your data, and then they've introduced all this tracking information to build a comprehensive picture of who you are and where you work. And it's probably a safe bet saying that they're going to then be able to determine where you have access to, right? So they've just data exfilled your entire personality and your entire code base. Oof. So why collect all this data? One possibility is targeting. So the server-controlled backdoor in channel 2 can harvest 50 files on command. Analytics tell them whose files are worth taking and when they're most active. Profiling first, exfiltration second. That's the malicious corgi playbook. I need to send this to my friend who has some corgis. Think about what's in your workspace right now, so you can see what's at risk. Your env files with your API keys and database passwords, your config files with server endpoints and internal URLs, the credentials.json in your cloud service account, maybe some SSH keys you added for convenience, the source code, your algorithms, business logic, features that you haven't shipped yet. The file harvesting function grabs everything except images, up to 50 files at a time on command. Your secrets, your credentials, your proprietary code, all of it accessible to a server in China whenever they decide to pull the trigger. And because Channel 3 is profiling you in the background, they know exactly who has the most valuable code to steal. Rip. All right, so closing thought. So we're all in on the AI tooling gold rush. Developers are installing extensions faster than ever, and that's the right call. These tools make you faster, smarter, more productive. Questionable. Depends on how you use them. But there's a gap between how quickly we adopt and how thoroughly we verify. 1.5 billion developers trusted these extensions because they worked, the marketplace approved of them, the reviews were positive, the functionality is real, so is the spyware. Moving fast with AI tooling is good. Moving fast without visibility into what they're actually doing with that code and your 1.5 million developers end up in their workspace, having their workspaces harvested. Your team shouldn't have to choose between moving fast and staying safe. Koi lets you do both. These guys actually, I don't even know what their product does, but they do some banger research articles. They've done some really good ones. They had ones on Shai Hulud when it was going active that were very detailed. I liked them a lot. All right, they had a companion one to this here called PackageGate. So this is 0 days in the package manager that NPM won't fix. I love this. Just Koi riding the Shai Hulud worm. Love it. And I know this is AI generated, but I freaking love this. It's like the worm is coming for the cyber world. I heard someone's doing something stupid. Count me in. Let's see. I never heard of Clawbot for about a week ago, and then suddenly I'm finding it mentioned everywhere. I'm not even sure what it is. At this point, I'm afraid to ask him. No, it was some new AI agent system. I typically don't like to go get on the bleeding edge of these things. Like I said, Daniel Miessler's PAI has been out for a minute, and it was introduced to me back in beginning of December when I was taking a class with Jason Haddix, and I didn't get around to it till literally like last week. So, and the only reason I trusted that one to even work as fast as it did is because it came from Daniel Miessler, who has a very long standard reputation, right? I don't know who wrote Clawbot or anything about that. I haven't dug into it. I'm not saying that person doesn't. I'm saying I don't know about it, so I was not going to go hop on the hype train. Anyway, so let's look at PackageGate again, which is flaws in the NPM package manager. After Shai Hulud ripped through NPM last November, which with 700 packages compromised and 25,000 repos exposed, the ecosystem settled on a defensive playbook: disable lifecycle scripts and commit your lock files. It became the standard advice everywhere, from GitHub security guides to corporate policy docs. Makes sense. If malicious code can't run on install and your dependency tree is pinned, you're covered, right? I love this. This meme is fire. Use ignore scripts to prevent dependencies from running scripts, right? Right? They didn't quite use the meme right, but I like where they're going with this. The meme is killer. This got me thinking, what if there was a vulnerability that could allow attackers to just hop over those defenses? That would be terrible. So I decided that if such a vulnerability exists, it better be find them before the bad guys do. So I went looking for holes in the defensive playbook. I found 6 0-day vulnerabilities across NPM, PNPM, VLT, and Bun. Ooh. I hate to hear that because I've been using Bun a bit more recently with the PAI stuff, with bypasses for both script execution and lock file integrity. PNPM patched it, VLT patched it, Bun patched it, NPM, which is now under Microsoft, closed my report saying works as expected. Freaking microslop. So here's where we are. The defense everyone adopted after the worst NPM supply chain attack in history have major gaps, and the biggest package manager in the ecosystem has decided those gaps aren't worth closing. If your organization depends on NPM with the ignore scripts as your safety net, then the net has a hole in it right now, and we're calling it Package Gate. I love it. New gates. Yeah, classic microslop. Oh, let's see. So the post-Shai Hulud playbook. When Shai Hulud hit, the post-mortem wrote themselves. The worm spread through post-install scripts, hijacking NPM tokens and publishing malicious versions of any package it could get access. It was a masterclass in supply chain exploitation, and other attackers were paying attention too. Since Shai Hulud, we've seen a meteoric rise in malware using this technique. In the months since, our team has detected hundreds of packages exploiting post-install scripts. That's so funny that, because it's not like the dangers of post-install scripts hadn't been made known for a long time. It's just, it took a freaking, nuclear bomb like Shai Hulud to actually set it off where people paid attention to it. Let's see. So within weeks, ignore scripts went from a power user flag to a standard recommendation. Security teams added it to their CI config. Blog posts called it essential. The same went for lock files, commit your package lock.json. Why would you never do that? I was like, I thought committing the package lock was standard fare. This was like, hey, you should be doing this. This was, yeah, do this because then you know exactly where your versions are pinned. But anyway, so and by doing that, you pinned your dependency tree to a known good version. So the two mechanisms became the accepted answer to supply chain risk in the JavaScript ecosystem. Disable scripts, pin dependencies, sleep well. But what these actually do is, let's see. Yeah, what these defenses actually do. A quick primer for the uninitiated. Lifecycle scripts are commands that run automatically during package install. When you npm install, packages can define scripts to be executed at specific moments. Pre-install, install, and post-install. This is how Shai Hulud spread. A compromised package would run a post-install script that exfiltrated tokens and infected other packages. The ignore scripts flag tells npm to skip these scripts entirely. No pre-install, no post-install, nothing runs. The package gets installed, but the embedded scripts stay dormant. Lock files work differently. When you first install dependencies, your package manager generates a lock file that records the exact version of every package in your tree, plus the integrity hashes. On subsequent installs, the package manager checks incoming packages against these hashes. If something doesn't match, the installation fails. Together, these mechanisms are supposed to guarantee that nothing runs that you didn't expect and nothing installs that you didn't vet. But, giving away the plot here, bypassing this script execution prevention. So the ignore scripts flag and its equivalents are supposed to prevent code from running during installation. I found bypasses in all three package managers that I tested. npm has a git configuration option that specifies which git binary to use. Oh god. Oh lord. So when you install a git dependency, npm clones the repo, runs the npm install inside it, loads any of the npm rc files present. An attacker creates a git dependency containing a malicious npm rc that points git to whatever their malicious script is, plus a nested git dependency. So they put in a nested git repo inside there and they say, oh, by the way, the git version you're supposed to use is my shady script right here. So when npm processes the nested dependency, it runs the attacker's script instead. That's so bad. So you get full RCE even when the ignore scripts are enabled. So we have evidence that the actors published a proof of concept of using this technique to create a verse shell in the past. RIP. So for PNPM version 10, it introduced scripts disabled by default as a security feature implemented through an allow list called only build dependencies, or only built dependencies. But this only applies during the build phase. Git dependencies go through a separate fetch phase where prepare, pre-publish, and pre-package scripts run unconditionally. So the security setting is never checked. An attacker publishes a Git dependency with a prepared script and executes it without prompting or warning. RIP. Neural, what's up, brother? Neural, you have to remember the rules of chat. Rule number 1 is don't hack the stream. Number 2 is everybody in chat is a fed. Rule number 3 is don't talk about anything illegal. See rule number 2. And number 4 is be excellent to each other. Gotta remember that one. I know, buddy. But anytime I get a chance to recite the chat rules, I do because they're hilarious to me. Which now means I have confirmation that Neural is a fed because he's in chat. Everyone in chat is a fed. Yeah. Hey, yeah, number 5 is unofficial rule 5 is always be pooping. Yes, understand, you bunch of weirdos with the poop tracker. And I know I'm the one who put it in the command, but I did it as a joke and you guys just freaking ran with it. Anyway, so we got 2 down. I think we've got 3 left to go, or 2 left to go. So that was P and PM. VLT has a path reversal bug in its tarball extraction. The regex meant to block the ... sequence treated the caret as a literal character instead of a starter string anchor. I had 99 problems and regex was 105 of them. So an attacker, so a path like package ... bash rc sailed right through. An attacker could craft a tarball that writes files anywhere in the file system, including overriding the user's get binary. So when VLT then clones an inner get dependency, it executes the attacker's code. Bun had a trusted dependencies mechanism that's supposed to whitelist which packages can run lifecycle scripts, but the trust check only validates the package name, not its source. Bun also ships with the default list of 366 trusted package names, such as esbuild or sharp or playwright. So an attacker can create a malicious tarball or a get subdependency using one of those trusted names, and Bun will happily run its scripts. Now, they did mention that Bun, PNPM, and VLT did actually already fix this stuff, but NPM said, nah, we're all good, bro. So you name a subdependency esbuild, point it to a URL or a Git repo, and your post-install script executes, bypassing the requirements. RIP. I'm a fed. Promotion! Long time fed, first time chat. Ah, damn it, I'm out of water. The heater's been running so much in the house. I'm just desiccated. I'm just dry. Let's see. What about bypassing lock file integrity checks? So lock files are supposed to guarantee that when you install, what you installed yesterday is what you install today. The integrity hash is the mechanism. So if the content doesn't match the hash, installation fails. So PNPM and VLT both store HTTP tarball dependencies without integrity hashes. So these remote dynamic dependencies, which are URLs pointing to tarballs hosted anywhere, get recorded in the lock file by URL alone, with nothing to verify the content. Oh god. That's bad. Neural, thank you for coming online, brother. You're in the network. So what does this mean? This means a malicious dependency can point to any HTTP tarball, and the server can return different code every time it's requested. First install, benign code that passes your security review. Second install, CI malicious payload. I love attacking CI/CD pipelines. They're just a gold mine. So the lock file is committed, the URL hasn't changed, but the code is completely different. So an attacker who gets a package into your dependency tree, even several layers deep, can serve targeted payloads based on timing, IP address, or whatever other signals they want. Your lock file provides no protection. So we've already seen this in the wild. Phantom Raven, I didn't hear about that campaign, was detected in October, used RDD to hide malicious code from every security scanner on NPM, and it had about 86,000 downloads. Damn. Oh, that one happened in October. Yeah, I was buried in work in October. That's how I missed that one. Yeah, it was just a glitch in the Matrix, Chris. Actually, hang on one sec, guys. I'm still here. I just gotta take care of something real quick. All right, I'm back. Sorry, I had to take care of something real quick. I do love that slide. Slide to the left, slide to the right, slide to the left, slide to the right. Cha cha, real slow. Do 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 do. You gotta keep yourself amused sometimes, guys. All right. Anyway, so let's look at what was the disclosure process here. So we reported package-gate vulnerabilities to all 4 of the package managers. We filed the vulnerability to NPM via HackerOne. They closed the ticket. Their explanation was NPM users are responsible for vetting the context of packages they choose to install. They also cited documentation for the NPM registry, not the NPM client where the vulnerability actually exists. So it left us wondering whether the report received a thorough review. No, NPM is run by Microsoft now. So what makes this response particularly striking is that NPM's own bug bounty program explicitly lists arbitrary script execution upon package install with the ignore scripts flag as a focus area. So we asked them several times to reconsider, pointing out the documentation mistake. No reply. As a last resort, we used a personal connection to reach someone on the NPM team who might reconsider. Unfortunately, that attempt bore no fruit. I am a massive goober. I am. Micro sleep, yeah. Oh yeah, Chris. So since they've been pushing Copilot everything, everybody started calling them micro slop, and they hate it. And so of course now I'm gonna just do it even more. Let's see. So as opposed to NPM, the other package managers respond differently. PNPM is maintained by a small team, yet they responded immediately and fixed the issue in under 2 weeks. VLT is a pre-1.0 project built by ex-NPM engineers who left Microslop, and they fixed it in 8 days. Bun acknowledged the report and shipped a fix in version 1.3.5 within 3 weeks. All 3 teams were professional, took the report seriously, and acted quickly to protect the users. It was genuinely encouraging to see that level of commitment to the security of their users. But that's good to hear because I've been doing a lot more with Bun recently since I've been working on that PAI project. Let's see. But with NPM refusing to act, we faced a difficult decision. Publishing an unpatched vulnerability in infrastructure that's critical isn't something we take lightly. It's not what we wanted, but we also couldn't ignore the reality. If we found this in under a week, state-sponsored attackers almost certainly have too. Staying silent started to feel like the riskier choice. So reluctantly, we decided to go public. Hey, there's no fault in going public, bro. Microsoft literally said, it's not an issue, bro. Trust us, bro. Okay, I'm going to report your non-issue. And you'd be really surprised how many times a non-issue gets released to the public and all of a sudden there's a fix for it. If you guys hadn't seen this, 0-day initiative. Yeah, so here on the 0-day initiative, the whole purpose of this here is to get basically information out. Oh, I might be confusing my wires. Hold on. I think I'm thinking of the wrong thing. There was, dang it, what was it? It was another data repository where they would publish known 0 days that the company just absolutely flat out refused to fix. I want to say it was 0-day initiative. It is 0-day initiative. Here we go. So like, for example, Delta Electronics. There's a CVE here. It was published in 2016. No, well, where's a better example here? Here. There's a bunch in here that like they get published. Here we go. Where they're tracking everything. It's like, hey, by the way, we're gonna release this. If you don't, if they have not responded by, in this case, May 27th, they're just gonna say, hey, this is gonna get dropped, and it's affecting PDF Forge in here. Actually, hold on. So let's look at the published here. Let me see, 2025. Let's look at some more from 2025. Hold on. Let me scroll way down here. Trying to see if there's any in here. I'm looking to see if if there's any in here where these 2 columns don't match. Yeah, but anyway, so yeah, Zero Day Initiative is a place to go post those where it's like, hey, these are known bugs that the company's not going to fix. I've noticed Copilot's been integrated everywhere except in the licensing and billing screen to help you save money.
The Shy Hat virus detected in the network.
The Shy Hat virus is live. Hold on. Gotta send the cookie. Send cookie to slow it down. What's up, Shy Hat? Welcome in, Raiders. I hope y'all are having a fantastic Wednesday. We're finally starting to thaw out here in Texas. The snow, it's finally above freezing. It is currently 38 degrees, which is enough for the water to turn back to water instead of being ice. My street in front of my house was just a freaking 5-inch thick sheet of ice. And everybody's like, I thought Texas was supposed to be resilient. It's like, bro, we don't get snow. We get ice. Lots and lots of ice. Just sheets of ice. Ice as far as the eye can see. Yeah. Welcome in, guys. We were actually just reading about some bugs in Node package managers. Well, I'll say not necessarily Node. JavaScript package managers that have O days in them. Hey, Sai, what's up, man? And there was basically, the TLDR is, there was in case you're not familiar with it, let me give you a little bit of background info. I apologize, Sai. But you are just as welcome in here. This is a friendly place. Who is that? Shonuff. Dude, the Shogun of Harlem is in the house. But anyway, the TLDR is, we had the Shai-Hulud worm coming through and busting up the entire JavaScript ecosystem, right? And it was doing it through something called post-install scripts, where once you go install a package, right, you download the code, you tell it install and pull all the stuff from NPM or whatever package repo, and then it has a post-install script or a pre-install script or like a during install script. Anyway, those lifecycle packages became compromised, and then it used it to compromise other packages as it was going through. So we called the Shai-Hulud worm. And because of that, people started implementing some like really standard defense mechanisms to basically disable those lifestyle scripts, those life cycle scripts, and also to start pinning the versions of the repos that they're using. So that way it's not just going and grabbing the latest version, which was the compromised version. So sounds really cool. What did Koi come through and do? The guys over at Koi went through and said, okay, cool. Is there any way to break this new, what is the gold standard of these installs to potentially cause another supply chain attack? And yes, they found one in PNPM, NPM, VLT, and Bun. And the story of that is that Bun fixed it, PNPM fixed it, VLT fixed it, and NPM said working as expected. Because it's owned by Microsoft. And of course they did. Ugh. So yeah, a lot of fun there. But anyway, so yeah, that's what's happening with this. So we're kind of wrapping up here to see kind of like what NPM should do. They said reluctantly they decided to post this even after NPM said it's not an issue, to which I reply, great, if it's not an issue, then just make it public. What are they going to do? Get butthurt about you publishing something that's not a security issue? There we go. Let's see. So not to shame NPM, but because the people in the organization deserve to know that what they're relying on and to make their own informed choices, there are alternative package managers that take security seriously, and we wish the post wasn't necessarily. So what should you actually do? So the standard device isn't working, it's just incomplete. Or sorry, the standard device isn't wrong, that is good advice. Don't run the lifecycle scripts, pin your package JSON, your package lock JSON. So commit your lock files to source control, that is good. Use the ignore scripts. Update the package managers to the latest version. Make sure you're good there. Because like I said, the other three fixed it, right? It's just NPM who's the holdout. And the fourth, and here's the shot across the bow, fourth one, consider your package manager a choice. PNPM offers stricter defaults and more granular security than NPM. VLT is still strictly pre-1.0, but being built by people who were previously on the NPM team. And Bun is pretty cool.
Can't hear you. Sound off like you got a pair.
You're full of crap, Killa. But hey, man, what's up? What is Q4OS? side, just so I'm not thinking like the wrong thing, because I live in acronym soup hell. So Max, I have not used bun very much. I'm just starting to tinker with it a little bit. All right, let's knock this article out, because I got one more that's really cool I want to try to get to before we wrap up the stream. So final thoughts. We didn't write this post to shame anyone. We wrote it because the JavaScript ecosystem deserves better, and because security decisions should be based on accurate information, not assumptions about defenses. The standard advice of disabling scripts and committing your log files is still worth following, but it's not a complete picture until PackageGate, which is what they called this bypass, is fully addressed. Organizations need to make their own informed choices. So the research was conducted by our team at Koi, and we built Koi to catch exactly these kinds of threats. So I really like the guys at Koi. They've got a banger research blog whenever they put stuff out. So very cool. I like that one. Okay, this one was a little bit different here. And first off, I have to say, this guy's CSS is absolute fire. But he called this in his blog Agent Von Hunting. So that's the one we're going to check out next. I actually have to go to the bathroom, and no, I'm not going to poop, you big weirdos who have a poop tracking fascination. I'm just going to go get some water, and I'm going to go to the bathroom real quick. So give me like 1 sec, guys. Be right back. All right, I'm back. Guess who's back? Back again. All right. Oh, so Q4S was a Debian Linux distro. Gotcha. I do prefer Debian. I'm trying to branch out. Trying to branch out to other things. Also, sorry that took a little bit longer than I expected because I had to go tuck Sock into bed because she tries to hang with my sleep schedule. And I'm like, honey, you realize you turn back into a pumpkin at like 9:30 p.m., right? I was like, you need to go to bed. If we are well past 9:30, you need to get some sleep. I'm not going to turn the Cookie Monster, legally distinct Cookie Monster, into a poop monster. No, bad killer. Bet. All right, so let's take a look at this one. This will be our last one for tonight. This is Agent Von Hunting by Jasmine Leroux from Cape Town. I do things on computers. This blog, I'm just gonna say, I love this like terminal blog CSS. This is legit. I love this so much. It's like listing blogs, projects, about. Hold on, I gotta check the about now. This is so amazing. Software engineer in Cape Town, South Africa. I work with whatever catches my attention. Right now, that's agentic AI and finding vulnerabilities. Archival projects and radio are on the back burner. Cursed computing never really leaves. I write sometimes, mostly I found a weird thing. Here's why it's interesting. That's awesome. Okay. Let's see. And this kind of comes on the heels of, there was another article we went through over the last stream, which was another guy who was he found a 0-day in a particular, I think it was QuickJS. And he used a series of agents to go through and build the exploits to use the exploit, right? To weaponize it, to turn it from, hey, we found a crash, here's how we actually turn it into an exploit. And it was such a cool, yeah. I know, Reiki, this is an amazing CSS. I freaking love this. Anyway, so here's how Jasmine is talking about using agents to hunt for vulnerabilities. So I had a pile of Opus tokens and an itch to do some vuln hunting. The boring part of vuln hunting is the triage. So reading through repos, like looking for the one cursed line that made you go, wait, what? What if I made the agent do that part? So first thing is a sanity check. So I pointed it to the over the wires Natus to see if it could actually find bugs. It reached level 29 in about 4 hours. Nice. For context, level 34 took me 4 weeks when I did it manually. Level 34 was the limit of my skills at the time. It one-shot the first 11 levels, broke ECB mode encryption without prompting. The Pearl Jam vuln took me an entire weekend, which it solved in about 30 minutes. I nudged it once, Pearl Jam. That was enough. Okay, you know what? I think this sounds really cool. However, I'm going to preface it with something. And this is a problem that I'm trying to think about how to solve with Hackbot. And that is, Hackbot is being tested on systems that are already known and already public, because that's what I can test it on. I could go test it on private box. However, one of the things that is the problem with it is that the information about those systems has been, especially the older boxes, right? Like RootMe, the one we're working on, has been slurped and has been digested, which means information about it is trained into the parameters of the models. And I guarantee you, there's probably write-ups about Over the Wire, because it's been out a long time, and you start nudging it with something like Pearl Jam, it's going to point that vector search optimization, that's pretty much what the AIs are doing, into a space that says, hey, this is where I'm going to start looking for it and finding it. So as really cool as I think this is, part of this is also, depending on how it's looking at it and it's basically tokens. Oh no, go back. Unfortunately, the information about how to solve these is likely baked into the model. So the guys over at Dreadnought, when I was talking to them about this problem, they said what they do is they actually go through and use like a customized version of Game of Thrones that has all of the identifying information except for the attack types changed. So the usernames are all changed, the machine names are all changed, the IP address ranges are all changed. They've gone through and they have reworked everything in there. Hang on, I gotta look at this Q4 OS real quick because I'm not familiar with it. The name just kind of reminds me of Cubes a little bit, which Cubes was a really cool operating system. Lightweight Debian-based distro designed for older hardware using a seek, fast, stable, customizable operating system offers two primary development environments, which is Trinity and a KDE fork of KDE Plasma. Ooh, Sai, thank you actually, because I have two old MacBooks that I was looking for a version of Linux to run on. They're old Intel Macs. One is very old and still running a Celeron, which I got from a guy for like $100. But I have my old 2012 MacBook, the one I used when I was in college. And that one, I tried to run Arch with Hyperland. Unfortunately, it doesn't recognize how to use the built-in Intel graphics on it, and it wouldn't render what was it, OpenQL, I think. So Hyperland was a no-go. I'm going to try this on it though, because I just need something that will help that laptop run as a remote work system. Oh, I'm not surprised there's some for the Apple Silicon too. Cool. Yeah, Sai, thanks for that mentioning that though, because I want to go check that out now. Because I was just thinking, what could I use on this old MacBook? Right now, it's actually running Kali, and I don't need that. So it's too much, and it's also not suiting the use case.
Incoming transmission from Moreno Gumby. Why don't terrorists shop at Walmart? They prefer a Target.
Oh Lord. Oh Lord, Gumpy. Anyway, so back to this article, because I want to wrap this one up. It's not super long, but it looked very interesting. So we were talking about it was able to take a small nudge and complete level 28, which was Pearl Jam, I think. Let's see. Level 29 is where Opus stalled, but watching it get there that fast made me want to point it at real code. There's a little aside here that that Jasmine wrote. Said the timing attack level stumped it until I suggested taking multiple samples. That stumped me too. I only knew the fix because I'd already spent hours on it. So the setup. So I remember awesome self-hosted, several hundred projects, internet facing by design, wildly varied security maturities. So I set up a Ralph Wiggum loop. I love the name. It's called the Ralph Wiggum loop. If you're not familiar with what that is, it's basically running an iterative forever loop in Claude code to accomplish a task. It's funny. Each repo becomes a ticket. Agents grab one from ready, clones it, hunts for vulns, files a finding or marks it clean, and moves on. So target selection is solo developers with low contributor count, no CI/CD badges or security advisory history, external tool integrations like ImageMagick, HTML to PDF or FFmpeg, and under 1,000 GitHub stars. One hard rule was if it finds something, it keeps going. No, found one SSRF, ship it. Cover the whole code base. Findings get tracked as tickets blocked on a holder issue, and the holder is my triage queue. Nice. Nice. Oh, got something in my eye. Stand by, y'all. I love this idea of having anything like in a ticketing queue. That's cool. Oh, how come every time I click something, it wants to jump to the very end? Okay, so what actually happened? I ran it overnight mostly, free quota hours. First few runs were rough spent. A few hours getting beads workflow consistent. Not the vuln hunting part. The please stop inventing ticket states part. So after it charted through roughly 300 repos, most rejected at triage, roughly 30 got a deep look. It found real bugs like an SSRF, XXE, path reversal, RCE-ish type stuff, injections. One pattern was solo dev projects were dramatically more likely to have something exploitable. The bizarre doesn't help when there's no one there. The catch was the agent makes stuff up. Sometimes subtle misses in mitigation. Sometimes bold invents. Sometimes bold? Oh, sometimes we're... Damn it, quit clicking off. It keeps taking me to the very bottom. Okay, sometimes the stuff that it made up were subtle, like missing a mitigation, or sometimes it was a bold invent where it invents an exploit chain that only works in its imagination. For every finding, I have it write an exploit, spin up the app in Docker and try it. If it fails, let the agent iterate. If it keeps failing, assume bullshit until proven otherwise. So the human part, SSRF in the thing that fetches URLs, isn't automatically worth an email, Solo dev home lab projects behind a reverse proxy, different standard than a VPS deployed publicly.
Incoming transmission from Moreno Gumby. A bear with no teeth is called a gummy bear.
Oh, poor bear. So, I've got Q4OS running on an old Dell, and it's been a bit roughed up. No touchpad, no keyboard, but the USB mouse and keyboard works, and the power cord battery is dead. Oh no. So, oh, you got it on the power cord. Yeah. Hang on. After we finish this, Sai, I'm going to show you something hilarious. Let's see. What about the overnight runs here? So one morning I woke up to find an agent had decided it didn't need to follow the ticketing process anymore. Tickets misclassified, tags wrong, the whole queue a mess. So I spun up another agent to clean it up. It worked. Mostly though, it's boring. Check in, review what it produced overnight, verify the promising ones, close the rest. So people are building fancy frameworks for this. Graphs, planners, multi-agent belief systems. I did the dumb version. Point an agent at a list, give it a workflow, see what falls out. The scary part isn't that it finds bugs, it's that it's cheap. The read code until your eyes bleed phase used to be the tax for everyone for people doing this at scale, but it's not anymore. If you maintain a solo project, assume someone will eventually aim an agent at your repo. If you self-host, assume that some of what you run has never had a second pair of eyes on it. Okay. So fairly straightforward. Gummy bear.
Incoming transmission from Moreno Gumby. The tomato turned red because it saw the salad dressing.
Damn it, Gumby. Let me see if I can find this video real quick. Because you just reminded me of this, Sai. Here we go. Hold on, I'm going to pause the alerts for just a second. Let me see if this comes through.
Laptop that my parent bought, and supposedly I'll get a new one once it broke. You see, at first it was just a simple extension of mouse and keyboard. But as time goes on, the laptop starting to show problem. At first it was a simple overheating, still functionable, so a fan underneath. Soon after, the battery broke, still functionable, as all we need is just constant charging, and then the memory corrupted, still functionable, using external hard disk as primary, and you know what, even when the screen is not functionable, it's still functionable, as I use a secondary monitor as primary, because long live the functionable laptop, even if it's lost its identity as laptop, is still functionable. I'ma pass this down as the curse of money worth to my next generation.
And so, yeah, Sai, whenever you mentioned that, that's exactly where my mind went, because I've been there, and I had the laptop that turned into a reluctant desktop. Still functionable. Oh, that's hilarious. All right, very cool. I'm glad I could leave y'all on a funny note there for a second. By the way, I know we haven't been covering the Bad Sector Labs blog. It's because I've been coming up with a lot of really cool ones in here. But definitely go check that out. I'll drop a link in the chat so you can have a weekly reading list. That is not the right one. You killed me. You're killing me, Smalls. Hang on. Ignore that. Ignore that link. Hang on. Why is this not working? Stand by. Uh-oh. I can hear Peaches. Peaches has a snortle stuck. It's okay, Peaches. Still functionable. I should add that to the soundboard. That's what I should add. But anyway, if you want to check these guys out, they're going to be on break basically till, I believe, the first week of February, because they're working on updating Ludus. Bad Sector Labs are the guys that make Ludus. I love it. So it is a great blog. I love it. It's one of my first ones I try to read like every week when it comes out. And that's usually where we get the stories, but I'm finding so many now. I've got a better tracker set up. So I got all the articles and notes, the ones that I've got. In fact, hold on. This is no longer scheduled. This is covered. This one is covered. And this one is covered. And this one is covered. There we go. Hold on. One of these was dumb, though. Which one was it? I forget which one that was. But anyway, there's all the stories covered. Also, if you enjoy all sorts of hacker shenanigans and blogs like that, go check out the folks over at InfoSec Streams. Usually this time of day or night, depending on where you are, we are the only ones online doing the shenanigans. So I OSINT like a mofo. Dude, I you know, one of the things that kills me, Sai, is that you find like a really good OSINT source, like, oh, this is a great data source. Eventually it becomes popular and it gets hugged to death and it just takes the forever nap. That makes me so sad. The hardest part of OSINT really was just trying to keep up with data sources. Yeah, GoPro has just been kind of doing his own thing. He's got a new gig going on, so unfortunately, we got to find somebody to raid out to. So if you have any raid suggestions over on the Big Purple site, feel free to shout them out. But let's go see who we can find and see what they're doing here. Let's see, Moo Hoodies is on. Could always go see them. Same cat. Oh, you know, Science is on. What are they talking about? Talking about tardigrades in space. I love that channel. They're so funny. Shindigs is on? Oh, yeah. Go see what Shindigs is up to. Theo is on talking about a new AI model. Go figure. Kimmy K25. You know what? I think we have not rated Dead Sun in a while. Let me see what Dead Sun's up to. Let's see. Dead Sun's playing Peak. Okay. In that case, we'll probably go raid over to we'll probably go give Shindigs a raid over. Shindigs is a hilarious dude. Darn ads running here. Use Grok for OSINT. That's actually probably a really smart idea, come to think of it, because Grok has really good... I mean, it has two big things, right? One is it's very good at searching the web, but two, it's also, because it's run by X, Twitter, whatever, it's very good at searching through Twitter posts. So that's actually a really smart idea. I enjoy Grok for lots of things. I used it before I upgraded my Claude subscription. I was using it a lot more. I still use it kind of as like an every once in a while daily driver. All right, let's get this started. Coding TTS. All right, guys, we're gonna go right over to Shindigs. Do me a favor, everyone. When we get over there, drop a big happy Hacker Planet in there with some happy hackers and legally distinct cookie monsters. And just let them know we got some big love in there. Shindigs was in Theo's chat when they were talking about the Kiki drop. Oh, okay. Quick reminder, guys. There will not be a stream this Saturday because I have to. I'm going to be at the race this weekend. The cross country racing series is starting back up. It was actually supposed to have been this past weekend, but they postponed it a week because of all the ice and snow. So it's coming up here this weekend. I'll be out there. But we will be streaming Sunday night. We'll do some more work on the Mythic C2 MCP server so we can then integrate that into our beginning PostX agent and have some fun with that. But that's all I got with you guys. I want y'all to all have a fantastic rest of the week. The week is not over. Maintain crushing it mode. until Friday. Remember, Friday is not Take It Easy Day. That is read-only crushing it mode. Do not push to production on Friday if you value your weekend. And I hope you all have a fantastic rest of your week. I will catch you all on Sunday. And I want y'all to remember one super important thing. I mean this. This is not just some kind of closing catchphrase. And that is, I love ya. Peace.